Continue watching Parliament TV, a station that is dedicated to bring Parliament closer to you.
This month, we're cooking up a storm. King Katumba spices it up as he sets his sights on the villagers of Ubuntu. Then, secrets and hidden agendas are a melting pot for chaos in Pali. And we join our favorite hostesses who stir up a blend of exciting conversations. Then Sita's marriage ambition leaves everyone a little steamed. And music legends serve up their most exciting memories in music. And the royal clique turns up the heat and fires up the industry. We've got the recipe for the best local entertainment on Zambezi Magic. Channel 162 on DSTV, Channel 5 on GoTV.
I have decided to name a new heir. I'm your heir. Dragons. A power man should never have trifled with. War is afoot.
Night will come out. Now they see you as you are.
It's all about music, marriage, and Morgan Freeman this month. Atlanta's rap elite return with more dramatic ups and downs as they navigate the hip-hop biz.
I'm always gonna have your back.
Lakshmi's life takes an unexpected turn when she learns the truth about her marriage.
Promise.
And it's Morgan Freeman mania with a whole month of his blockbuster movies.
If you would be Freeman, then you must fight!
Get the latest and greatest with GoTV. Love it.
As we go about our everyday business, let us remind ourselves about the importance and value of life. Let's stay alive and look out for each other on the road.
Road safety is a shared responsibility. Just like we share the roads, we need a multi-sectorial approach that requires the engagement of all stakeholders. Join hands and make a pledge.
I, Dr. Siatombo, pledge not to drive at excessive speeds.
My name is Siruamba Daniel, and I pledge to report all broken down vehicles and traffic violations to the Road Transport and Safety Agency.
I pledge not to do harm to oneself nor others.
I am Eric Kasomo Jr., Chairman of the National Theatre Arts Association of Zambia, and I pledge not to use a phone on the road.
Let us pledge to make a difference. Let us pledge to make a change. Let us pledge to save lives. Together we can save millions of lives. Be road smart because life is precious.
Safety with Road Transport and Safety Agency RATSA is here again Wednesday as we look at the safety on our roads. My name is Julius Msumali, your presenter, and I'm delighted that you've joined us on all our platforms, that is Parliament Radio, television, on our Facebook page, on our YouTube channel, and we'll be able to invite you to participate on this program as we look at the fast track court and traffic offences. That is a fast track court for traffic offences, and my guest is Mr. Peter Muliata, legal officer, prosecutions from RATSA. Welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Brother Julius, and good morning, viewers.
All right. Before we look at our topic, like we always do, how safe have been our roads, of course, with those reported accidents that claimed lives. Like we always say, no single life is worth being lost. One life lost is a life too many indeed. We lost lives in Kasama, and of course involving unregistered motorbike and an ambulance, something that we did talk about, these unregistered motorbikes across the country. And we also lost one of our renowned comedian on the Great North Road as well, Mr. Brighton Sinkal, and may the souls of the departed ones rest in peace. But generally, how has been the overview of on our roads with regards to safety?
Well, generally, like you have put it, we've had these accidents. That is one in Kasama, and the other isolated incidents, just like last night we had the situation, though for last night it was just serious injuries only, where a pedestrian was hit along Marshlands area. So it hasn't been a good week per se, yeah. But we are continuing doing everything possible that we can within our means to ensure that we mitigate these accidents. Sure.
Maybe on the Great East Road, Marshlands is the Onza area there is quite prone to accidents. Isn't agency perhaps not considering to maybe turn it into a black spot, maybe reduce the speed limit further, remove the pedestrian crossing and take it crossing 6 lanes on a busy road? I think it's not ideal. And also the decommissioning of the bridge that was there before East Park and the expansion of the road. Hasn't this also increased the rate of accidents on this zone, right from the roundabout to Marshlands area?
Okay, yeah, in terms of statistics as to accidents that have been happening after those development and before, I may not have those statistics, but I want to believe that our engineering department is doing everything possible. They must be, of course, with other stakeholders, trying to see ways in which this can be mitigated, given the fact that we are receiving a lot of reports in that along that stretch. So I'm sure our engineering department and other stakeholders are looking into that to see to it that something is done to stop these accidents.
All right. Right, those are the quick updates on how safe our roads have been, and of course, sadly, lives have been claimed during the course of the week, and it's just an edge for all motorists and all road users, including pedestrians, to make sure that you take safety as a priority. Today, we are looking at fast-track court and for traffic offenses. Maybe, tell us, what is a fast-track court, and maybe we can elaborate also how it operates.
Okay. Basically, I've heard, before I answer, I've heard comments where people are saying, "Oh, Ratsa court." It's not a Ratsa court. Basically, the fast track court is a subordinate court, which is specifically designated to handle traffic offenses. So it operates like any other court, and the rules and the procedures that are applicable to any other court is applicable there. So basically, it does not, the fact that it only handles traffic offenses, it does not take away the fact that this is actually a subordinate court like any other court, which has to follow the procedures stipulated in the Criminal Procedure Code and other laws that it may handle. So having said that, I must also state that in terms of these traffic offenses, currently we only have this fast track court running in Lusaka, but very soon we'll have it opened. We'll have fast track court opened in Solwezi, Livingstone, Luansha, and Kitwe. Also, Choma just confirmed to me that they're trying to put in place, that is the civic center where we intend to be handling these cases from. Someone was just confirming to me that they are preparing, they are preparing, and they're almost set to have a situation where we can even start prosecuting from there, prosecuting these traffic offenses.
And I'm sure, Lusaka, you opened the first one and been piloted for a while now. Maybe you can also highlight to us what kind of offenses are taken to the fast track courts.
Okay. Ideally, all offenses are supposed to be taken to fast track court. All traffic offenses are supposed to be taken to fast track court. But however, we are mindful of the fact that there are some provisions in the Criminal Procedure Code, that is section 221 of the CPC, which allows someone to pay admission of guilt at the police for those offenses that do not exceed 1,500 penalty units, which is 450 kwacha. So meaning that all those offenses that are below 1,500 penalty units, someone can be allowed to go and pay admission of guilt at the police. But anything above 1,500 penalty units, that matter must be disposed of in the courts of law.
Are you able to highlight examples of some cases that are below 1,000
such cases that are below 1,500 penalty units are offenses such as use of handheld. So if you are seen driving a vehicle whilst speaking on phone or whilst holding the phone, the officers will charge you, and you can be allowed to go and I mean, they can give you leeway to choose. If you want to go to court, yes, it can be taken to court, but it's one of those offenses where you can pay admission of guilt. Also failing to fasten the seat belt, careless driving, offenses like unassisted driving. So all those are offenses that are below 1,500 penalty units. But I must also mention, quick to mention that with the coming in of the law, where we are looking at, we'll soon be dealing with the demerit points, it will be imperative that all such cases are taken to court, because it's arising from, those offenses that will be able to penalize those that will be breaking the law. Yeah. So, and for those that are above 1,500 penalty, we have such offenses as obstruction of roadway, dangerous driving, driving under the influence of alcohol, such as other offenses as maybe affixing false number plate, driving a motor vehicle without road tax. So all those are offenses that are above 1,500 penalty unit. Like for the offense of driving a motor vehicle without a road tax, for this offense, if one is found guilty, the court can go as far as treble the amount payable per year. So meaning that if you in a year for your vehicle you pay 600 kwacha, and you are found that you are driving this motor vehicle without road tax, the court will be within its power to fine you up to treble the amount. So meaning that 3 times 600 kwacha that you pay. So you can see how serious that offense also is, and it is for this reason that people should avoid, driving their vehicles when they don't have the required documents on their vehicles, because from that amount that you pay, treble the amount, assuming one is fined treble the amount, you can save a lot there. You can buy road tax from that amount, you can buy insurance from that same amount, and you can take your vehicle for fitness. So it is just fair to those that are in this habit that they guard their money jealously.
You are part of the prosecution team from RATSA, and we hear from colleagues, friends, and just general public that basically when you appear before the fast-track court, it just for sentencing purposes. There's nothing like you exculpate yourself, you give a side of your story, and you are basically going there, and you should be ready with income. Why is it so that there are situations where, like in ordinary courts, someone who's taken to court is given room to give the side of their story, but we hear when you appear, they are told, don't waste the court's time. You've been brought here, straight away sentence. Bring the money. You don't have the money, then something else happens. Why is it so?
Okay, I'll tell you what. Just like I said from the onset, the fast track court for traffic offences is a subordinate court, just like any other court. So, meaning that if it is a subordinate court, just like any other court, procedures there are followed, and the magistrate who sits there is from the complex, magistrate complex. So even the issue of saying probably people are forced to admit or anything of that kind is actually not there. You know, let us look at it this way. Here is this person whose vehicle had no valid road tax, or maybe it had no fitness, and then he goes to court. Then he's, I don't know what excuse that person will give. But of course, the common excuse that we've been having is, you find someone is found driving without a road tax, then he will say, no, I was coming from the garage. So it's like everyone that is charged with that offense comes from the garage. So I don't know, it also makes me get worried, because if all the vehicles that we are going to be having on the road that do not comply are all coming from the garage, yet they are being driven on our roads, and sometimes carrying passengers, carrying goods, and then someone tells you to say, I'm coming from the garage. That is not correct. So in simple, I can say the procedures there are followed, and one is asked. So, you know, before one pleads guilty, you will be, the magistrate will also be will also ensure that the procedure is followed. So you ask the accused person whether he pleads guilty or not guilty. And if he pleads guilty, then the magistrate will go further to establish whether that accused person is admitting each and every ingredient of that offense. So in a situation where you know, an ambiguous response is given, then the court will enter a plea of not guilty, because, or like for instance, you say, no, yes, I was found driving a motor vehicle without road tax, but then I was on my way to Mimosa, or I was planning to go to Mimosa. That's so the court there will take it that you have denied the charge, and a plea of not guilty will be entered, and then witnesses will be called, the officers will be called to come and testify where they found you and what really happened. So from that, you probably end up having a situation where at the end of the day, it is established that you were actually not even going to the place that you said you were going. So it is just important that we comply to these requirements that we are supposed to.
Perhaps this came not long ago, before we had these automated speed cameras that were mounted on the roads, and people were receiving messages to appear before the fast-track courts. And of course, colleagues would simply say, when you are going there, make sure that you have the fine ready. And you also introduced the weekend imprisonment. How has that worked? Has it been discontinued, and or is it in force?
Okay. Yeah, weekend imprisonment, it is law that has always been there. But except
for traffic offences.
For traffic offences, yes. Particularly so for traffic offences, and more so to do with driving under the influence of alcohol. You know, there are some people who cannot do without drinking. So you find that even when he drinks, he feels he can't do away with the driving. So such are people that it was meant for, who every time you find this person is driving under the influence of alcohol, thereby putting other people in danger. So these are instances where once the court is of the feeling that, well, I think this is too much, so that person can actually be be sent. Say, for instance, maybe someone is a second offender for the offense of driving under the influence of alcohol. Because for the first time, usually, where the law permits for a fine, it gives a fine, the court will take fine as the first option. But in a situation where even after you were fined and later on you are brought back again for the same offense of driving under the influence of alcohol, at that point the court may just have to probably go the other route, which with a view of assisting you, that is maybe sending you for weekend imprisonment, where you'll be required to be reporting every weekend, every Friday at 18 hours, you report yourself to prison, and then at 17 hours, it's 18 hours on Sunday, you are released, thereby reducing those chances of you going to
being
drink.
a danger on the road.
Yes.
Okay, maybe say the ambiguity in the campaign. The offense is driving under the influence of alcohol, but the campaign is do not drink and drive. People park, drink, and then afterwards they drive. So how do we reconcile the two? Maybe we're not doing enough to project that the do not drink and drive campaign does not speak to drinking out under the influence of alcohol.
Yeah, but basically, a human being is a complex being. You may put these measures, this and that, even talk. You may talk the loudest about it, but others you find they'll still find themselves in these vices. But however, what we are doing as the agency responsible for safety, we've not actually relented. We are not going to relent. We will continue preaching about this message, and those that have ears definitely will have to hear and comply, and those that where people do not comply, that's where now the law comes in, where we will have to enforce the law to the latter.
All right. And the general overview, since its inception, do you think that the fast track court has brought something that bringing compliance on our roads with regards to adherence to road regulations?
Yeah, basically yes. I think there has been behavioral change in some drivers. Those that have been taken to fast track court, they do realize how serious it is when you get there, and because of the existence of the fast track court, to some extent it has brought about sanity. But I think there's still need to do more in terms of enforcing and ensuring that all those that are found wanting for offences regarding the Road Traffic Act, they should be dealt with seriously, and particularly so those that are in the habit of violating, these laws with impunity, where you find they park at traffic lights, loading buses at traffic lights. That is a very unfortunate situation, and once such is found, in fact, the best is to revoke the license, so that once the license is revoked, then that person should start afresh. If he is to apply, he should start afresh the whole process, because such conduct is not actually expected to be seen from a person who was well trained, someone who went through the highway code and understood the rules that are the rules of driving. So in such a situation, I think it is just fair that such one has his license revoked, and then he starts afresh in terms of the process. He should go in class, and we should be sure that he has actually gone in class and all those other requirements are met, and then a new license is issued, and probably by so doing will bring sanity on our roads.
Okay. Oh, earlier you were explaining on the plans and which jurisdictions you want to open the fast track courts for these traffic offences, related offences. But currently, what happens to offenders who commit traffic offences in places where we don't have these fast track courts?
Okay. In those places where we do not have a fast track court, but we do have enforcement officers. What we've continued to do is that for those offenses that are below 1,500 penalty units, we've continued allowing them to go and pay at the police. And for those that are offenses that are above 1,500 penalty units, those offenses, we normally indict them. So we draft the charges and take such people to court using the mainstream court. Yes, notwithstanding the fact that there's no fast track court. So we push the cases in the mainstream court where the process goes just like that without being fast tracked.
Right, you are watching Road Safety with RATSA, and our topic today is the fast track court for traffic offenses. Mr. Peter Mulyata, Legal Officer Prosecution from RATSA, is my guest. Our text line is 0978 772801, 0978 772801, and if you need to make a call, our call line is 0772 832-122. That is 072-832-122. You can see those lines on your screen if you are watching us on television or following us on Facebook. But for those listening to us on radio, our text line is 0978-772-801 and our call line is 0772-832-122. Please make sure that you mute or turn off your gadget. With regards to volume, turn off your gadget or move away further from your gadget. We have a caller on the line. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello, good morning. You are through to Road Safety with RATSA.
Yes, sir. Maokabwanji.
Tauka Maokabwanji. Your name and where you are calling us from, sir?
Nivamaki Vatumina kuno ku Kalomo, Southern Province.
Mark from Kalomo. Please go ahead with your contribution.
Manje contribution yanga mfuno rankula ko venao. Ipempako ababala tsava. Kali bapa bamaimira malode. Sometimes bakazinkala ko fera. Uzapeza uchoka isetimanya muna vinyama timaenda na vinyama timapeka kukasumbalesa. Uzapeza pali checkpoint pali. Pakuimika ngani wakanso pa checkpoint. Uzachoka chabe in 100 meters. Uzaona chabe wa traffic achoka musanga abula aimika motoka. Adomina za kuimikira palibe na chani, palibe na labor, aza kuimika chabe paliponi. I was thinking that mentality ifunika kusira palot because never cause no ultima accident yakazipaka.
And maybe you can help us, Mr. Mark, that you are saying after the checkpoint, then another officer follows to stop you where there's no stop space for you to stop.
Hello?
Hey, so you are saying you pass a checkpoint, and then a few meters again you are stopped by another officer.
Yes, more especially wapachoma. Ukachoka wapachani pa apa point la kumama pa batoka somewhere pale palika checkpoint. Uchoka chabe ka checkpoint kaja. Ucho ukaibe na oika mujia tu wisi uzapeza bakwimika na futi bali palodi. Isi ni chani manje. Bazakwimika na pale pali pele ibai. Bakupakingisa. Maona?
Okay.
After that wanyamula vinyama kutoka kumongu kutali konse kumongu wenda kukasumbalesa. Bazambo kufunza 19 hours bakuwuza ati night band. Night band 19 hours ku 90 by 19 hours.
All right.
All
right. Thank you so much, Mr. Mark, for your contribution. We'll take 3 calls in a row before Mr. Mulyata reacts to those contributions. Good morning. All right, that contribution from Mr. Mark. Maybe we can also move a message. Good morning. You are through. We have a call on the line. Good morning. You are through to Road Safety with RATSA, and we are discussing fast-track courts. Hello, good morning.
Yes.
Please turn off the volume on your radio set or television before you engage us.
Sorry.
Good morning.
Hello.
Yes, please, you can go ahead with your contribution briefly, please.
Okay, this is Mr. Siame.
Mr. Siame, where are you calling us from?
I'm calling from Zingalume.
Zingalume, please go ahead with your contribution.
I'm very proud with your program, and very interesting.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, just want to find out because from that's my own observation. The all accidents that are happening during the cause is the bus drivers. So I just wanted to find out from our boss a lot what measurements do they put for the bus drivers.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Siame. Right, let's see if we can squeeze another caller before Mr. Muliata reacts to those contributions. Good morning. Good morning. You are through on Road Safety with Ratsa.
Hello.
Good morning. Please, your name and where you're calling us from.
My name is Mlenga.
Mr. Mlenga.
I'm calling you from Solwezi.
Yes, please go ahead with your contributions.
Yes, please. I'm happy that we have the safe, road, the Ratsa man here. Like the last caller said, some of the accidents that are happening, we have taxi drivers.
Please, we can't get you. Yes, please speak up. Repeat your question again.
I was saying, some of these accidents happening, we have the taxi drivers contributing. I don't know from the Ratsa man if they could pass a law where we have people from like the public to be members so that they assist in arresting these people. I know in the 70s, we had, a road safety section where public people were members. I don't know if that can be introduced so that we work together with Ratsa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mlenga. Mr. Muliata, you can react to those three, and we'll take a few messages after this. Our callers, you can just hold your peace there. We'll engage you. Mr. Mike from Kalomo talking about the checkpoint and maybe the proximity of checkpoints. You are stopped, and then maybe 2 kilometers again, there's another checkpoint where there's no space for you to park, and you are carrying livestock. The second one, cause of accidents attributed to bus drivers, and then Mr. Mulenga from Solwezi is talking about generally citizens' arrest to help bring sanity on the roads.
Yeah, basically, issues that have been raised by Mark from Kalomo, who is talking about a situation where you have a checkpoint here, you are stopped by the council, and a few meters away or a few kilometers away, then you find the officers. Now, what I'm not sure is he has not stated which one of the two does that. But even then, whether it involves the police or Ratsa personnel, usually we are strategic in the manner in which we carry out these snap checks. We don't just put things, put these checkpoints. You are seeing there's a checkpoint there, then you come and stand here. Then you are defeating the whole purpose. Why not join those people so that you work together as they stop those trucks? They are checking what is to do with the livestock and whatever, and you as police or as Ratsa, you're also checking something to do with the offenses and the roadworthiness of the vehicle. So to say these checkpoints are done, they do here, then they also go and mount theirs somewhere a few kilometers or meters away, that actually is something that I may not necessarily agree, because I'm aware that we are
maybe his point is especially with the current situation of our roads, where a checkpoint has some space to park, but generally you find that the shoulders are eaten away, and then you just stop this truck that has carried livestock. It can't move off the road. It will park there and then inconveniencing other motorists. So even when you strategize, I know securities, I mean, you have to be strategic. Maybe those are his concerns. Why can't you find perhaps some right place for to stop motorists.
Yeah, that's why I've said that usually when we mount these snap checks, we make sure that the stretch where we have done it or the place where we have mounted it, it is such that even if you are to stop a truck and ask the driver to park, you park without any difficulties. But however, if there is such a situation happening, and most you find that maybe that person may have been stopped because he has not further told us what really would have caused to such a stoppage. Where is stopped? Is it that he is stopped for speed? Yes, you can have you can put in a strategy where there might be 3 or 4 kilometers away from where you are. There's a checkpoint, and then you put a speed trap. So if he is stopped for speed, then that is something else. Though I heard him say before you even engage into gear 2.
Yes.
So meaning that I don't think officers can put another checkpoint here and a few meters away there's another what. I think they are reasonable in the manner in which they carry out these operations.
Cause of accidents attributed to bus drivers?
Accidents involving bus drivers, you know, this is a matter of serious concern to us as an agency, because we do realize that these people have a higher responsibility. They are carrying a lot of passengers on board, and you know, having a situation where these people who have been entrusted with lives find themselves in such a situation. Yes, accidents do happen, but then when they are common, then it becomes a problem and a matter of concern for us as an agency. So basically, we are not just seated. I think we are doing everything possible to ensure that such trend is brought under control. And for your own information, I will mention this, that you know, we have a system of monitoring these public safety drivers. And usually at the end of the month, we do generate a report and see which drivers were driving above the permitted speed for public safety vehicles. But having looked at, I mean, we have these tools, and we are studying the tools and enhancing further. So basically what we will be doing going forward is a situation where we will request even members of the public to be patient with us when we are checking these buses, when we are stopping these buses. We don't do it just for the sake of it, no. We want them to arrive safely where they are going. So they should expect to have a situation where as they go, probably in Kabwe or before Kabwe they are stopped. Then the whole purpose of stopping them, of course, like I said, will be strategic in the manner in which we stop these buses. We'll not just stop the bus on the bridge or, you know, in an area where they cannot even park properly. So we'll make sure that we're strategic, and then the buses will be stopped. Then the officer who stops that bus, the officers, they will communicate with our call center, our enforcement center, where they will be told to say, they will give a report, oh, there's this bus, how is it driving? So we'll get the report from the officer at the who is monitoring to say, oh, that bus, when he was at Chibombo, he was exceeding. But of course, we are mindful that there are some instances where maybe someone, yes, exceeds for purposes of overtaking. But in a situation where someone exceeds continuously for more than 1 kilometer, then what sort of overtaking is that? So those are cases that we'll be taking on, and once we receive a report, say, oh, that one, when he was at Landless, he was exceeding the speed limit by so much for a reasonable for a reasonable stretch or distance. Then that person will be charged there and then, without waiting until the end of the month to generate a report. We are going to make sure that we start physically monitoring them there, and then we charge, and this we want to believe will bring about a behavioral change in drivers.
Incorporating citizens in the agency to help.
Effect
there's
we have a provision. We have a provision in the Road Traffic Act that allows for you know, bringing on board honorary inspectors. And those that would want to join us, those that would want to join hands with RATSA in terms of enforcing, we encourage them to apply to the director so that they come on board. But they must understand that when you are a honorary inspector, it's not something that you rely on in terms of your living, So we encourage those that have a livelihood, those that have means of sustaining themselves. Not a situation where, okay, I'm not employed, then I say, oh, I want to be a honorary inspector.
Part-time.
Because that way we are creating a problem whereby you'll be tempted to start getting money from people because you have no means of a livelihood. Okay. So we do encourage those that have means of livelihood, maybe he's working, to submit applications so that they are considered for honorary inspectors. And once they are brought on board, then they start policing in those places. Maybe as they go for work, they start charging those that are misbehaving on the road. And provided there's evidence, then we take up such matters and take those people.
Right.
That are
so let's try to balance up our platforms. We have a few messages that I'll read out, and then you generally just react to them. Good morning. My only concern is the road marks. Please, RATSA, work on the road marks, or maybe it's a job of RDA. That is Mwemba from Choma. Good morning. I am happy there is a weekend prison. Why can't it be for everyone, especially to whoever is found drunk on the road? Something that we read, already commented on. Good morning. I'm happy that there's a weekend prison. This is one and same message. No, it's different. Okay, this one is from Promise Chirubi, still talking about the weekend prison. Good morning. Let me appreciate for the job you are doing in Zambia. You are on 1 in a million, sir. Kindly advise the traffic officers to deal adequately with the bus drivers. They don't obey traffic rules. You find someone on the traffic lights passes when it's red. Thank you. Those drivers who drink while driving, their licenses must be revoked and not to take another anymore. That is Mwemba from Katete. I'm Makelenja from Chawama, enjoying the program. It's just a compliment. In Monze, Chisekese Railway, RATSA Mount, there a road broke at night, just near the railway at night. Is it okay? So maybe you can just basically talking about drinking under the influence of alcohol, and not following regulations, especially on the driving, the bus drivers, which is a teething issue. Mounting roadblocks near a railway line in the night, is it okay? Is it a strategic point, as you put it?
Okay. Basically, issues to do with the road marks. For those stretches, for those the stretches that are on the highway outside the places that are controlled by the council, by the local authority, those it is the responsibility of RDA, I want to believe, to make sure that there are signages on those roads, of course, in conjunction with the advice of RATSA, and also those places within town, those it is the responsibility of the local authority. So, however, I think you may have seen that most of our roads are frequently marked, though not knowing the type of paint that we use, because you find that they are marked and a few months later the paint fade. But however, they are doing everything possible to ensure that these roads, our roads have road markings, so that people who are traveling on these roads are informed and they are warned about the dangers that lies ahead. And also, in terms of these bus drivers, I think, like I said, the bus drivers, they carry a higher duty in terms of ensuring that the people that they are carrying are actually safe. Now, if a bus driver is misbehaving on the road, he parks anywhere without regard for other road users, then he is actually not fit to be a bus driver. And those are instances that we have said, going forward, such drivers who are found behaving like that, we will start now writing reports. Officers will be submitting reports regarding the conduct of such driver, and once they submitting such reports to the director, and then the person will be put to task to explain or to show cause why his driving license should not be revoked for behaving in that manner which does not befit a person who carries a lot of people. So once if he does not give any reasonable cause as to why his license should not be revoked, then the director will proceed to revoke that license for either will proceed to revoke that license. And once that license is revoked, then that person will not be expected to drive. And even the employer, the person who had employed that person, will also be called and be talked to say, in the event that you continue using this driver and we find him driving, then even yourself, your road safety license will be suspended and you will not operate. Yeah.
All right, maybe away from our messages and calls, kindly shed a bit more, some light on the offense of causing death by dangerous driving.
Okay, causing death by dangerous driving. You know, it is an offense for any person to cause the death of another person arising from the manner in which he is driving. Either he is driving in a reckless manner or he is driving at a higher speed or any manner which is actually dangerous to the public. Then then such a person who is driving like that causes the death of another, then that person will be said to have caused that death by dangerous driving. Now, I must also mention here that when when a determination is being made regarding the manner in which someone was driving, attention will be paid to all the circumstances of the case. That is, in what circumstance was this offense committed, and also including the nature and the condition and use of the road. You find that maybe a road is one way, and then a person is driving from the opposite direction, and then he causes a collision. So how is that particular road used? So those are some of the instances that issues that will have to be looked at when someone is said to have caused the death of another. And also the amount of traffic which is actually at the time. Was it a peak period when this person was driving at such a high speed? And also or maybe the amount of traffic which might reasonably be expected to be on the road at that particular time. So when a person commits this offense, the maximum that he may be charged with is that up to 9,000 kwacha, or imprisonment not exceeding 5 years. So basically that is that about dangerous driving. But of course I must also quick to mention that you know, there are instances where maybe a person, he has quarreled with a friend, and then he is tempted to take the law into his own hand by hitting that person, thinking, oh, the moment I will see him walking, going away, I'll follow him and smash him because I know I'll pay this much. No, that will not carry, because investigations will be carried out, and once it is established that you had actually quarreled, you fought prior to you hitting him, then that will be clear case of murder, and you will not be charged with the offense of dangerous driving, but you'll be charged with murder of that person.
Right, and to the fast track courts, if one is found guilty, how many days does the court give for one to pay the fine?
Okay. When all the processes have been done, and then one is found guilty either by the fact that he has admitted guilty, or the matter went into trial and then he is found guilty, there and then the court may state that that accused person should pay that money forthwith. So if it is forthwith, whatever amount there has been fined on that person has to be paid there and then. And if he doesn't pay, then that person will be taken to prison. And until such a time when he pays that amount, because the sentence will state in default of paying, if that accused person fails to pay that amount, then he is sent to prison maybe for 3 weeks or maybe 1 month or 3 months imprisonment, simple imprisonment, depending on the pronouncement that may be made by the court. However, I'm also mindful of the. I'm also aware that depending on how you plead with the court during your mitigation, if you move the court with the reasons that you've given as to why you are requesting the court not to fine, to give you period within which you should pay, the court has always given that leeway. So, okay, you pay after 1 week, you need to come and make the payment.
And what happens to those you summon and do not come to court?
Yeah, we've had instances where, because basically the way we operate, due to the nature of the offenses that are involved and the nature of the court, we say we don't want to hold on to people's vehicles for a long time. So basically what we do, once someone is charged, he is told to go to court the following day so that he can go and answer to those charges that have been leveled against him. And in a situation where he does not appear, and probably a week, we may probably wait, and after the end of the week we note that this person has not come, then the court generates a list of such people who have not appeared, and then we have their vehicles blocked. And once the vehicle is blocked, it simply means essentially that you cannot transact with RATSA, and you can only do so once it is unblocked, and the unblocking will only be done once you appear, you present yourself at court to answer those charges that were taken to court. After that, once you are fined, then you bring the receipt to RATSA and they unblock that vehicle. That is just an administrative measures that have been put in place to make sure that accused persons do appear at court.
Right. Mr. Mulyata, I think I'm overwhelmed because of so many messages that are coming through that are of interest for you, and I do assure that our followers you will get feedback from. I'll be able to forward these messages so that you can get back, because they are so interesting and people need help, especially that there are so many teething issues that involving your agency and the citizens and what they are going through on our roads. But since we're going into yet another production, I have to let you go for now, but only to say thank you so much for appearing on our program.
Please, thank you for having me. Sure, thanks.
Right, dear followers, listeners, and viewers, and we come to the end of today's program. We are looking at fast track court and traffic offenses, and of course I take cognizance that there's so many messages that we have not read, but the assurance is that these messages go to the desk of Road Transport and Safety Agency, and they should be getting back to you on behind this program. But just sincerely to thank you for contributing to this program. We'll be back next week on Wednesday, just about 8:35. My guest was Mr. Peter Mulyata, Legal Officer Prosecution, and I was your presenter, Julius Musmali. But as we go on behalf of the team, the blue light keeps watching you. Bye-bye for now. So another part of the Jewish history of this town is in fact the Pioneer Tower behind me. That was funded by the Sussman brothers. They were amongst the first Jewish people to come to this country back in the 1890s. And once Livingston town was built in 1905, they were amongst the first inhabitants. And 50 years later, as part of the celebration of their lives in this country, they funded the building of the clock tower. And of course it has a wonderful view over the falls, which you can see in front of us here, all the way down there. So it's part of the celebration, and 100 years later the Sussman brothers came back, and the Lutunga came from Barot Sudan to come and meet them. That is the prominence that this particular family had in this country, and of course in South Africa, because they left here, Livingston, to go to South Africa, where they set up in South Africa the company called Woolworths. So to this day the Jewish people have a strong influence not only in this country but in the sub-region. This is Nicky Iljon's shop. The Iljon family, of which there were various members of it, were one of the first inhabitants of the new town of Livingston, and this shop became one for selling bicycles and model aeroplanes. Now Nicky Iljon himself was the one who sadly closed down the synagogue when the last child had gone through there back in 1972. They then left here to go abroad after that. But behind me you can see there's a shop with pharmacy written on it. This used to be Sossi's garage. This was a man called Harry Sossen who married into the Sussman family, and he had the leadership of the Chevrolets back in the Northern Rhodesian days. And also, I'm pointing out over here, this tree is exactly where King George VI of Great Britain stood in 1947 in his visit to this country. Behind me is the Capitol Theatre, which today is the oldest cinema and theatre left in Zambia, and it was owned originally by the Grill family, and a young man married into their family, and his name was Harry Sossen, who we've talked about earlier. And this is where famous people in the world like Alfred Hitchcock and Danny Kaye came through to see films here. It was built in 1931, and beyond it is the yellow building, Stanley House, which is where they sold the finery to the local girls. That was dresses and all the rest of it as well. And then further down the road is a very famous intersection. This was the main intersection in town, and everybody in town knew it as Fix, Flax and Orfox Corner, after the three traders who were there. There was Sam Fix, who ran a wonderful dressmaking company. Old man Flax ran the haberdashery, like a hardware store, and beyond it was the Orfox family, and they traded in everything else. And the humor at the time was that these three business folk made all their money during the day and ran it across the bank, which is on the fourth corner. And if you look down the end, there's actually a lovely white building over there, which used to be Barclays before it moved across the road. The three shops behind me were owned by a gentleman called Elias Kapelowitz. Elias came from Latvia just before the First World War and traded with the local people further upstream. He used to paddle with his workers 40 miles upstream to exchange goods like beeswax and honey and things like that. And he then left here just after the First World War to go back to get a wife from Latvia, and they came through. Her name was Henny, and they ran the first completely kosher household in town. And they were very influential in here. They had an open house policy, and many Jewish people came through here. But their importance was recognized later on in life when they had both died, is their family received a letter of condolence from Buckingham Palace because of all the wonderful work they'd been doing for the communities, not just the Jewish communities, out here in the then Northern Rhodesia. And I think that's a great rubber stamping of the kinds of people we had coming over here in the early years.
Parliament TV, bringing Parliament closer to you.
Continue watching Parliament TV, a station that is dedicated to bring Parliament closer to you.
Tune in to Parliament Television for live parliamentary proceedings, parliamentary committees, and learn more about the operations, functions, and activities of the Zambian Parliament. Catch us live on DSTV channel 272, GoTV channel 100, Topstar channel 5, or visit the National Assembly of Zambia Facebook page. Parliament Television, bringing Parliament closer to you.
Watch Parliament TV, the station that is devoted and dedicated to broadcast live the parliamentary proceedings. Find out how your representatives are representing you in the House. Learn about various issues pertaining to the functions, operations, and activities of the Zambian Parliament. Parliament TV, bringing Parliament closer to you.
basically, I'm a villager from Monze, the eastern side of Monze district. This is my second term as a member of parliament, serving the good people of Momba constituency. I'm a married man, obviously with one wife, and I have 4 children. In terms of my education, it's important. The primary school I attended at Gasaga Primary School in Monze, in my constituency. And after that, I've gone to different institutions. The last one being I did an MBA. And my specialty basically has been in business management. I specialize in that. But I must mention also that I've learned quite a lot. Being a villager, as I said, whereby I remember I've gone to school. I spent the whole of my primary school, in fact, without putting on shoes until I was in grade 7. And not because my father could not afford, we had a lot of animals. But I think basically, culturally, those were things which we were not paying attention to. So I've been in this parliament. This is now my 6th year as a member of parliament. And I think history has it to that. So far, I think so good in terms of what I've done for the people of Momba constituency. So Momba constituency is purely rural constituency. Eastern side of Monze district. In fact, let me say just from the northwestern all the way to the eastern side of Monze district. My neighbors are the Bwengwa constituency, Monze Central, Magoye, and Gwembe. So predominantly rural constituency. My people are mainly in agriculture. We do rear animals and farming. We play a key role in feeding Monze district and other parts of the country. In terms of the population, we should be standing around, I think, 40,000 now. As you are aware, we are going to do another census in this year, in fact, in August. So that I think will give us the good numbers. I must mention that also in terms of the geography, my constituency is peculiar in that I have 5 wards. Out of the 5 wards, 2 wards are in the valley because, as I indicated, I share the boundary with Gwembe. Gwembe predominantly is a valley, and then the other 3 districts, wards are also in a plateau setup. So, because of that kind of differentiation, even in terms of the terrain, what you need to do here and there differs quite a lot. So that is the coverage. You may be interested that immediately you leave Magoye River, thereabout after the Magoye Bridge, all that is in my constituency. So the Great North Road coming to Lusaka from Monze, I cover part of the western side of the road, and very near, very close to Monze district, Monze town per se. We are talking about just 3 kilometers from Monze town. Then my constituency begins. But surprising, so you may be aware that Momba constituency is one of the smallest constituencies in Monze, in fact in southern province. It's one of the smallest, but terrain-wise is challenging to access some places. For Momba constituency, I want to look at, in terms of the priorities, what are our key challenges as a constituency? First and foremost, we are looking at the availability of water, both for human beings, that is clean and safe water to drink for people, and both for the animals. And that, for me, has always been my priority. I've said it, and I want, by the time maybe I hammer 2026, God willing, I should have a situation whereby almost each and every village, we have villages, should have a bore. Currently, that is not the case. We still have a lot of our mothers walking long distances in search of water. The same goes with our animals. You know, if you come to Momba constituency, you'll find that we don't have any river, which we call them perennial rivers, which has water throughout. We don't have that. So we rely heavily on dams. And these dams are silted now. So that is our priority number one, the availability of water for our people. And also the road network is nothing to talk about. The roads are quite very, very bad. The schools also. We have quite a number of good schools, but I want also to ensure that some of the community schools we have are upgraded to government school. We don't have desks. Most of the classrooms are no desks. So I can go on and on, but these are the key challenges which is facing us. In developmental wise, we are still a bit of backward. And now with the increment in terms of the CDF, in fact, makes me to relax a bit in terms of I will have the resources. The challenge now which I have is to work closely with the council to ensure that development is taken closer to the people. So for the members of constituency, my word always has been that we need to work as a team. If we work as silos, basically we will not achieve anything. And you know, I'm their representative, but this is their job. Together with me, I have to match with their expectations. So my request to them, and I want to thank them. If I think the most first place, let me thank them that I've worked in an environment that which is very, very good and conducive with my people, those I do represent. And I'm hoping that this will continue even in this second term of mine to ensure that we see what we can achieve as a team. If I take a borehole there, I don't want to say I've taken a borehole there. Obviously, that could be my initiative through them. But let it be them saying this is the development we have been crying for. We have worked and we have achieved it together. So I'm asking for their usual support, as always, so that we work as a team to develop the constituency. My doors are open, just like as their doors are open. I've never gone to a place and then they shut me around. So that openness which we have will continue to enhance, I think should be encouraged and should going forward. Basically, I just want to request them that we work as a team.
am Honorable Lloyd Luosha, the Member of Parliament for Chifubu constituency. Yes, I was born in 1970 in Usakile Mine Hospital, and later my father was transferred to Ndola. That's where I grew up in Chifubu constituency and did my primary there in Chifubu, and later grade 8 my parents advocated that they needed to send me to a boarding school. That's how I was sent to Kasempa Boys Secondary School, where I did my junior secondary. Then upon completion of the junior secondary school, I was selected to go to Solwezi Technical Secondary School, where I did my senior level up to grade 12. Upon completion of grade 12, I rejoined my parents in Ndola. And I started doing some evenings program in accounts at Northern Technical College, where I did the certificate in accounts and business studies, CABS. Then later went to do a diploma in accountants. From there I started doing my ACCA, which I went up to level 3, but I did not complete. I abandoned that one and started doing a bachelor's in accounting and finance under Copperstone University, which
Colleagues, you are welcome. You are appearing before the expanded planning and budgeting committee. We are looking at the revenues, proposed revenues and expenses for next year's budget as pronounced by the Minister of Finance and the National Planning, Honorable Dr. Tumeko Musofkwane. And as always, you have been a key partner of ours in terms of these matters, as we called upon you to appear before this committee this morning, and thank you very much for making it to the committee. So what we'll do is we'll start with introductions. Unfortunately, because as I said, this is an expanded committee of Parliament, and we have already lost a bit of time. So we'll allow you to introduce yourselves, and then the members will be making their introductions during the time for questions, for clarifications, if at all there will be any. So let's start with the introductions first. You can introduce yourselves. Yeah.
My name is Nkanduka Vivwa from Zambia Statistical Agency. I'm an acting principal statistician there.
Okay.
Good morning, Honorable Chair, honorable members. My name is Salome Naluele. I'm a senior demographer at Zambia Statistics Agency.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members of Parliament. My name is Mlenga Msepa. I'm the interim statistician general of the agency.
Great, thank you. And for the sake of the flow of this interaction, my name is Freddy Jatila, Member of Parliament for Momba constituency in Monze, also the chairperson for the Expanded Planning and Budgeting Committee. So what we'll do is we will give you about 15 minutes. If you need all of it to take us through the submission. We got your submission quite on time, and members have had time to go through it. So we'll give you 15 minutes just to take us through those salient points, and then we allow the members to ask questions if at all there will be any. And also just to indicate as always that Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia gives you immunity as and when you are appearing before a committee of Parliament. So you have a full immunity, meaning that whatever you say whilst appearing before this committee can never be used against you in any court of law. However, the same Cap 12 works against you in an event that you were to deliberately mislead the committee. So feel free to take us through your submissions, and then at the end, we'll ask questions. So we can start as and when you are ready, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, honorable members of Parliament. The The request is quite broad, so we may not be that exhaustive. It's basically like looking at the entire budget. However, what we are presenting in this submission is that basically the implications of the 2023 budget, like all other budgets, can be best understood from the policies and strategies outlined for the targeted sectors, and that's the approach we've basically taken. And therefore, we've got a section on economic sectors and a section on social sectors, and we've picked out the various macroeconomic basically objectives. I think the first one is the expected 4% GDP growth rate. Basically, government is saying that the primary driver of this will be agriculture, tourism, mining, manufacturing, and enabler sectors such as energy and transport. The table there basically just alludes to the shares of these sectors in the overall GDP over the period. Now, coming to the first sector, which is agriculture, we've basically, what government has done, I think what the minister has stated in the budget speech, is he has put forward fiscal and non-fiscal incentives in terms of stimulating the growth and attaining the transformation agenda of the government. So under agriculture, basically, we've got a number of fiscal incentives that we've outlined. There is, for instance, on page 3, the issue of increasing allowable expenditure for construction of farm infrastructure, including housing, which we feel that that should at least allay the problem of poor farm infrastructure, including housing for farm workers, and therefore be able to attract skilled labor on the farms. We also have, for example, on page 4, where the supply of milk cans and milking machines are zero rated. Obviously, this should reduce the cost of acquiring this equipment, and therefore have more people investing in dairy production, and therefore grow the industry and the sector. We've got also again some fiscal incentives on seedlings, which should help acquisition of improved seed varieties and therefore increase yields. There's also something on the use of greenhouse plastics. This is a technology which a number of countries use, and this should also enable most farmers to access this. There's also some incentives on fish farming in terms of equipment and so on and so forth. Now, what we see in this, like all other sectors, is that it will have the implication of reducing the cost of farming activities in this respect. Then also the non-fiscal incentives, where we are seeing on page 5, we've got recruitment of additional extension officers for livestock, crop and fisheries, the procurement of extension kits and construction dams, and then also the reforming of FISIP. I think for us, reforming of FISIP becomes quite important, because from the inception, this was a program which was meant for beneficiaries to stay there, not perpetually. I think initially it was 3 years, and then over the 3-year period, the government contribution is falling and the farmer contribution is going up. But this has now been a permanent feature, which has been quite a challenge. Chair, under agriculture, I think what we are simply saying is that, you see, the government's focus on resolving the structural and administrative impediments to agriculture, rather than, for instance, just focusing on increasing the number of people under FISIP, should help a lot. I think for some time it's been like the solution is just giving fertilizer, when I think we've had problems with farming practices because we do not have enough extension officers. Where they are available, they don't have the equipment, they don't have the transportation, and perhaps they don't even have more upgraded skills. Then the other thing in terms of just agriculture, I think it's important that also, as we're looking at this, contribution of agriculture, if you look at table 2, what we see is that much of the maize basically continues to come from mainly Central Province, Eastern Province, and Southern Province. Despite the fact that all these other provinces are also funded equally. What will be key for us to push is to ensure that these provinces, those that are able to grow maize, they also raise their contribution. The next issue sector is tourism. There are also some incentives there, simplification with licensing with regard to simplification of licensing, and this is being piloted in Livingstone, single license. Our view is that perhaps this could have been extended even to the new tourist destinations, because this is where we want to attract more people. And a lot of people trying to invest in tourism have a lot of problems in terms of perhaps getting 5, 6, 7 licenses. And these licenses can be costly just in terms of time and just in terms of the cost themselves. So the new destinations which have been like Cassava Bay here, Leo National Park, and other tourists apart from Livingstone, I think should have benefited from this policy. We were suspending duty on fittings, fixtures, capital equipment, safari, game viewing vehicles. This also, I think, we see it as similar to agriculture, reducing the cost of doing business in this area. Now, there's an issue of COVID, I think, which the country should continue to reach that base immunity of 70% vaccination. That gives more confidence to international tourists to actually come over. But I think there's one thing which has been forgotten, the issue of malaria. Malaria, a number of tourists, when they hear that that country is malaria prone, they don't show up. They think twice. I think it's something that we should not actually ignore. It's something that should be on board. Now, the other thing is manufacturing. Manufacturing is key in terms of what you are doing in terms of agriculture, because this is a sector which has the potential to process value, add value, and therefore create employment. We also see a number of tax concessions, for example, on page 7 for 15 years on income generated from large-scale corn starch by manufacturers operating in a mud facility economic zone. Other incentives are there also. The other one is a suspension of excise duty on locally produced clear beer from cassava. We feel this is important in the sense that this crop is grown by small-scale farmers and requires less commercial inputs such as fertilizer and seed. And I think for us, it should not be just targeting. There is one I think in Zambian breweries normally which does eco beer, but I think we need to bring in more investment and target the export market. So, Chair, I think the other one is, I think on page 10, just talking about export diversification, which normally there's an argument that if you cannot export, you can't basically grow. Figure 1 there shows our stored diversification efforts, where copper continues to account for close to 70%. Ordinarily, over time, we should have seen some reduction by increasing the non-traditional exports. And now it includes cement, power, there's things like manganese and agricultural produce. The next charts, Chair, are just some kind of evidence of this diversification that is on page 11. We've picked Chile. Chile is the largest producer of copper in the world. I think in 2021 they must have done 5.6 million, followed by Peru. But if you look at their shares of copper exports in total exports, Chile it only accounts for 34.3%. Zambia, which did slightly over 800, is number 7 in the world. Accounted for more than 75%. So you can actually see how the big copper producer in the world has diversified, and copper plays a smaller role in its exports than Zambia. I think it's just extra information, but also our dependence on copper. On page 12, Chair, you actually see figure 3, where we try to plot the trade balance with and without copper. So the green bars there, that is with copper. We are in surplus. When you remove copper exports, we're in deficits, and those are the orange bars. And these are things that, as an agency, would want the analysts in all government ministries to look at when they are doing the planning, because this is telling us a story that today, if we had no copper, this is where we're going to be. We'll be net importers of. And then also Zambia trade balance with SADC. You can actually see over the period we are basically negative, and this is basically because of the bigger muscle from South Africa. We need to take advantage of these trade protocols. Undermining, Chair, basically I think there's more of maintaining policy and tax consistency. Our hope is that this will help in future investment plans, and also to realize the 3 million target of copper in a few years. The restructuring of mineral royalty regime, we hope this will attract more investment, but more importantly, support the country's socio-economic development, because that's the key as well. As we are restructuring this, how does this fit into the country's socio-economic plans? There's the issue of design miners. I think this, if implemented well, should actually help out. Chair, I'll move to the social sector. The figure 7, Chair, just tells us something in terms of our GDP. And this is broken down into provinces. This is for 2020, to be similar even for 2021. Figure 7, which is on page 14. What you see, our per capita GDP was slightly above 18,000 kwacha, that's per head, if you have to share. But then you've got Northwestern Province close to 50,000 kwacha per head per capita, meaning that the total income for Northwestern Province is quite big, and then we compare with the population, and we've got that. But you see that even with that, Northwestern Province has one of the highest unemployment numbers. The reason being that, yes, there's mining taking place, but the absorptive capacity of mining in terms of labor is quite low, because for now it's labor intensive. And therefore, for our planners, us as an agency, we are saying when you are planning, you look at this number so that you understand your province and plan appropriately. The next one is implications on the social sector. We've seen an increase in both health, education, and social protection. That's on bottom of page 14 by 25, 28.3 and 29.1%. We've also seen an increase in terms of the numbers and the social cash transfer. Under this, however, social cash transfer, Mr. Chair, what we are saying is that there's need to try and have some kind of assessment of the effectiveness of social protection, so that if there are any areas that we need to improve, we improve. If there are areas where we've benefited, we strengthen. Ordinarily, there's an argument that when you've got shared growth over a period of time, the proportion of people on social protection must stabilize, a proportion of the people as the proportion of total population, because you're bringing out people out of poverty through all these measures. And therefore, it should not be something we should increase over a period of time, because if it's increasing over a period of time, it means that certain measures are not working. And that is important in terms of the social cash transfer. We need to see, are we having more people? Why are we having more people? Because it could just be that even though we are making all these measures, people are still falling in the poverty trap. So as we are increasing, we should carefully look at that. We've also noticed increased funding to education, where additional 3,000 health personnel and 4,500 teachers. This is also important in terms of developing human capital, especially the priority deployment, which is supposed to be in rural areas, so that the literacy levels can actually improve in those areas, and that should help in lowering poverty. Now, there are other indicators, Chair, that we feel, this is on page 16, I think, here, on inflation. We feel that I think we should sustain the slowdown, downward trend in the general level of prices to get to 6 to 8%. Because this is important for increased business and investment activities and overall growth and job creation and retaining the value of the incomes of our people. Those are just graphs. The next one is domestic revenue, which is on page 17, where government targets to mobilize at least 20.9% of GDP. If you note from the graph there, figure 11, you see how we've been performing. I think in 2021, for the first time, I'm sorry, Chair, the actual budgeted was 18% in 2021 as a target, as a percent of GDP in green, but the actual was 23.1%. In 2021, I think we had more revenues than actual budgeted for, and then also we had lower or minimal expenditures. The debt stock is key to limit the borrowing, especially for the government, so that the private sector can actually pick up all the money for investments. The other charts, I think these are additional charts. I think this one is important, figure 13. We're trying to update this, but the picture will not change much. This just shows how each province contributes to the overall GDP. You actually see dominance coming from Lusaka, followed by Copperbelt and Northwestern Province. Then you see some provinces, the contribution is quite low. Meaning that if we have to target 4%, we should be looking at how do all the provinces increase their contribution to that overall target. Then the others, Chair, can actually be ignored, and I would want to come to the closing remarks, Chair, that I think the budget in most aspects, we've got fiscal incentives, which our understanding would be to lower the cost of doing business and therefore attract private sector investment. And overall, there's also an attempt to put in non-fiscal incentives like completion of secondary schools, constructing new ones. But all in all, Chair, all in all, the benefit implications of the budget and the policies and the strategies that are outlined in the budget depends on one thing, and that's one thing which has eluded us, is effective implementation. That is what makes a difference, draws a difference between the budget and what you actually get at the end of the year. So that is the key thing. In terms of the policies and strategies, they are basically there. So the Minister of Finance and National Planning has spoken. For us as an agency, we have a job to provide the monitoring indicators which must be used to ensure that we are on the right track in terms of the policies and strategies. Thank you, Chair.
Great. Honourable members, questions? I see two hands, Honourable Jamba and also Honourable Chonde, another one. Okay, we'll take four. So Honourable Jamba will start, then Honourable Chonde, Honourable Mushanga, and the Honourable Mutale. In that order. Honourable Jamba. Mike, okay. Yes, Honourable Mushanga, Mike.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, witness. My name is Jamba Majilam, MP for Mwembe. I note that there is this pronouncement by the Minister over zero-rate supply of milk cans and milking machines to encourage growth in the dairy sub-sector. You as a statistical agency, have you taken keen interest in trying to see whether zero rating of cans and milking machines would really improve the dairy farming? I say so because 3/4 of the farmers who are doing daily farming, the small scale farmers who are doing daily farming, would rather employ milkers and not use dairy machines to do the milking. And meanwhile, what is of great import you notice that for a dairy animal today, if you're going to get a dairy animal milking one, it's about $2,000. So even if you lower the cans, where will the milk come from if the dairy animals are so expensive? I thought maybe we'd look at the numbers. How many dairy animals do we have? Do we have incentives to buy those? And maybe when you look at the, if you go to livestock, when you go to livestock, they'll tell you that 100 bags of meal number 3 is 13,000 kwacha. Why don't we maybe advocate for removal of duty or VAT on all these products like meal number 3, dairy 21, milk and cream, because those are the reagents which actually make the milk to be more productive than the cans. It's like you want to buy more pots when you don't have mini meal. I don't know whether you understand my question.
Okay,
thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Chonde.
Good morning, witness. My name is Chonde Saka, Member of Parliament for Milenge. My comment is on the mining. In 2022, we did incentivize this sector, hoping to attract investment. I would like a comment from you. Has this thing worked positively? If not, we have again continued to give more incentives when we have an increasing demand for social spending and we are losing out revenue. How is it working for us? I would like you to have a clear comment on these two issues. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Mushanga.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. I think we go to page 9. The focus is on table 3, that figure, Director, Central Statistics Office. What has necessitated, if you look at that figure, I would want you to inform this committee what has necessitated the reduction in the manufacturing subsector, especially beginning from 2021, since you deal with the projections and numbers. How could the future, how is the future looking like, especially from 2022 going into 2023? Then the next question is page 14. Page 14, it is also to do with the, I think that figure on the nominal provincial GDP per capita. These figures are for 2020, I think as indicated by you, presenter, and today we are almost ending 2022. The question is, why are we not current in as a GDP per capita per province? Because these figures are for 2020, and we are almost ending 2022. Last question, Honorable Chairperson, on page 19. I think also focusing on the figure 15, trends in youth unemployment rate. That is in Zambia per percentage. What is your advice? I'm saying your advice to Zambia to change this picture. Because the picture is not looking so good, especially when you focus on the high unemployment rate for the young people. So what is your advice to Zambia? Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mutale.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My question is, you've indicated that you are very happy to see government employing more teachers, more civil servants. You deal with statistics. I wanted to know from you at what percentage we are now in terms of emoluments vis-a-vis the budget.
Okay, thank you. Zambia Statistics Agency, can you respond to those questions?
Thank you, Chair.
Can you, your mic? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. On the issue of why not the issue of dairy industry, why not the mills mules, the animals themselves. I personally do agree. Our understanding that perhaps sometimes the budget can only do so much, but we also note within the budget speech that there is also an attempt, apart from justice, to deal with one vexing issue, and that's the issue of disease control, because that's also a major issue. Now, one of the things that we've had, I think, in this country is that is for small-scale milk producers, our observation has been that their sustainability depends on having these outgrower arrangements with some of these big companies. And yes, perhaps also the minister could have looked at the other aspects that make the dairy industry affordable. But I think we didn't have time now to go to investigate like industry by industry and understand the rationale behind some of the measures. One would want to think that the various consultations perhaps did feed into some of these policy pronouncements. I do agree, yes, there are a number of areas, not only in dairy, but across agriculture, manufacturing, that perhaps would require some more incentives. Now, the issue of mining, we do also acknowledge the fact that in our paper, we do acknowledge that as we are doing these incentives, we should not end up at incentives. We need to look at whether these incentives are actually supporting the socio-economic development of the country. And that is also important, because incentives is one thing. It may not actually meet the objectives. However, with the mining,
your mic, that's what I'm saying. The question is Honorable Jamba.
Honorable Jamba. There are two issues, Honorable Jamba.
So the question is Honorable Jamba. So when you pose a question, how do you walk out when the... How does he walk out when
your point is sustained. In fact, I told him by walking out, the quorum is following. Can we sit? No. Sorry? Honorable members, we are also live on TV and radio. We are serving the people of Zambia. Whatever is happening here, our people are watching out there. Our first call is to this work which we are doing. Okay? So can we remain seated and hear what our colleagues are presenting? Honorable Mushanga, thank you very much. One point. Statistics in general, you can continue.
Thank you, Chair. I was on mining, Chair. I was saying that we've also actually acknowledged that as we provide incentives to all other sectors, in fact, not only mining, these incentives, apart from these sectors growing, they must also support the socio-economic development of the country. So it's indeed important that whatever measures that we put in place, we should also see some benefits in terms of various areas that have been outlined. Now, in terms of manufacturing, which is on page 9, the table basically, the manufacturing largely depends, one will depend on how healthy the agricultural sector is doing, in particular Zambia. Because if you look at the table here, much of what constitutes manufacturing is food, beverages, and tobacco. That's where we've got more value addition. And therefore, these other sectors, their contribution is quite low. If you look at textile, clothing, and leather, we hardly have anything now. If you look at even value addition to copper, we don't have so many activities that can add value apart from agro-processing. And this is why the issue of diversification becomes basically important. We did make mention of Chile and Peru, where you see that they've actually diversified and they are producing a number of things. And therefore, some of the measures that are outlined in the budget speech, you are looking at, I think, revamping the mud facility economic zones, the various measures which are meant to support manufacturing. We believe, or we feel, if implemented properly, this could actually up the manufacturing sector. But we just have to prop up the sector. Then GDP 2021. I did, Chair, again, I think I wish to apologize. We're trying to, I think, in fact, print the most latest one. But however, GDP, we finalize GDP September every year. GDP for the previous year will be finalized in September of the following year. So for instance, the GDP for 2021 was finalized in September 2022. That's the final GDP. And upon that now, we start now compiling these aggregations by province in terms of provincial contribution and so on and so forth. And that's the one we're trying to print, but then we have to rush here. But however, we can still provide the most latest. But one of the things we will see from this picture is that nothing notable will change. I think this has been a pattern for quite some time. Now, in terms of youth and employment, the key thing basically is investment in the private sector activities. Because, but then also, the investment in private sector activities, people in education have talked about how we need to look at our curriculum, how we need to prepare the youth to be able to easily fit in the industry. They've talked about the gap between what is being taught in schools and what is obtaining in the industry. But creating employment, generating employment for the youth will largely depend on how much we grow the sectors that have got the capacity to absorb labor, that is agriculture, tourism. There have been arguments that for 3 or 4 tourists, you generate 1 job. But even that, we need again to invest, to attract investment in the tourism sector, attract investment in manufacturing, attract investment in even now the artisanal mining. So it's a big, difficult question that I may not be able to exhaustively answer it, but I think in general, it's how do we stimulate economic activities? How do we grow beyond the 4%? Because ordinarily 4%, some countries, and I think there was a paper one time where they were saying that for Zambia to actually make headway, we must be growing in double digits. That's perhaps the only way we'll have create employment for the youth. There was a question on the issue of emoluments. I don't have a figure just here off the cuff. I may be misleading the committee, but I think for me the key thing is that even as we employ civil servants, for us to sustain the payment of emoluments and all other programs, we must be able to grow the economy, because that's where revenue comes from, to be able to fund the various government programs. We must be able to grow the economy, and therefore I think it would also be interesting to start looking at how many private sector jobs are we creating? How much of that are we doing? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Statistician General and your team. Thank you very much for those comments and your presentations. Honorable members, we cannot keep them any longer than this. In case we have had some other questions, unfortunately we have to also strict ourselves to time. So our interactions with yourselves will end here. Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia, the immunity that which was granted on you also ends here. Wishing you the best for the rest of the day. Thank you very much for coming through.
Association of Zambia, good morning. Thank you. We are appearing before the Expanded Planning and Budgeting Committee. We are looking at the revenue and expenditure for 2023.
And as always, you have been our key partner in these issues, just to look at how the budget pronouncements as done by the Honorable Minister of Finance is, to get your comments, get your views, your concerns, so that even as we finalize it, then we take into consideration some of the issues that you may bring across. We are happy to have you, and you have been our dependable partner in this area. I must indicate whenever you're called upon, you don't shy away in coming through. We are live on both radio and television, and as such, our people out there.
Sorry, the minister is waiting for me outside. Just for a few minutes, 30 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Our people out there are either listening to what is going on or watching. Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia gives you immunity, as and when you are appearing before a committee of parliament such as this one, meaning whatever you say whilst appearing before this committee can never be used against you in any court of law. The same Cap 12 works against you in an event that you were to deliberately mislead the committee. So what we'll do is we'll get introductions, but as you can see, we are running way behind the time that which was allocated to yourselves. So you introduce yourselves, and then the members will do the introductions during the time of questions, if at all there will be any questions. So we can start with the introductions.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Gibson Masumbu. I'm the interim national secretary for the EAZ.
Thank you.
Morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members. My names are Robert Mokola Malashe. I'm a senior member of the Economics Association of Zambia.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members of Parliament. My name is Ms. Tendai Posiana. I'm the Secretariat Coordinator of the EAZ.
Thank you. My name is Fred Jatila, Member of Parliament for Momba constituency in Mwanze, and also the chairperson for the Expanded Planning and Budgeting Committee. So what we'll do is, because we got your submission quite on time and it's quite brief, about 8 pages only. Nembo Kalila.
Sorry, I'm always very particular about these issues, as you have come to realize by now.
You can amplify.
Yeah, so I noted that the team is led by the interim secretary. So what is the senior most position in EAZ? Who should have come with you? And where is he or she?
Mr. Masumbu?
Well, thank you very much for that. Yeah, the senior most is president of the association, and is indisposed. But in many cases, these matters fall under the office of the national secretary. And usually that's why most of the times I'm the one coming to present this. I've been here like 4 or 5 times before.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Dr. Kalila. I was talking about the issue of time. So, Mr. Masumba and your team will give you, say, 15 minutes at most, in case you need all of it, to just take us through, so that we can allow the members also to ask questions, if at all there will be any. So you can start as and when you are ready, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll try as much as possible to run through what we submitted, just bring out some of the current issues that we're trying to communicate. Our submission basically tried to look at the budget in terms of the extent in which it's trying to address some of the key challenges that we think the country and the economy is currently facing. And we tried to divide that between the immediate challenges and the intermediate challenges. So you see as we go through that we're trying to look at what we think are probably the most important challenges and how the budget has responded to that. Looking at the immediate challenges, we identified, I think, 3 critical ones that we think are important, starting with the issue of the debt stock. This is an issue which is currently, being discussed almost on a daily basis. Having defaulted in 2020 on the, debt repayments, and then, of course, there are discussions now to restructure, the debt stock, which we're hoping that, that can happen by the end of the year. So we think that this is indeed a very important issue, and we looked at, what is being done to address this. We, of course, identified 3 areas that are already being implemented, starting from the enactment of the debt management bill this year, which, among others, requires Parliament's approval of annual borrowing plans. We also saw that, within the budget and indeed in the medium-term budget plan, there's that resolve to commit to concessional loans rather than going for commercial loans. Government has committed itself, to only go for concessional loans. And of course, there's also the issue of using alternative financing models, such as public-private partnerships, to finance some of the infrastructure projects. So we think that the issue of resolving the debt crisis is being adequately addressed. And of course, we still noted that in the budget, there's still that plan to increase the debt stock by 1.4 billion. Of course, that amount will be based on concessional loans, which is a good thing. But we are saying that, well, probably, we need to consider gradually reducing how much we borrow, whether it's concessional or it's the commercial lending, because, we actually have to work on what we already owe as a country. Then the second thing that we looked at was the aspect of fiscal deficit. We looked at what we've planned, starting from the 8th National Development Plan and what we currently are able to achieve and what we are planning to achieve next year. We noted that over time, between 2022 to 2025, government planned to reduce the fiscal deficit from 6.7% in 2022 to 4.5% in 2025. And for 2022, we realized that although the targeted deficit rate was 6.7, the Minister of Finance said that that won't be achieved because they're projecting 9.8% deficit, which is on the higher side. And for next year, according to the 8th National Development Plan, the budget is 6.3, but the target is 6.3, but the budget is projecting 7.7%, which again is above the budget. So we're saying that probably we need to put more effort in order to reduce this parameter, because, of course, amongst other things, one of the issues, especially when it comes to the deficit, it means that we need to borrow more. And when you talk about domestic borrowing itself, there's an issue of crowding out the private sector, leading to high lending rates. Because the commercial banks have no incentives to, to take that money to the private sector, because they know that they can actually go to government, to buy bonds or other government securities. So in that case, the cost of borrowing still remains high. So that's why it is very, very important that, we, as much as possible, ensure that, that aspect, is reduced according to what we have planned in the 8th National Development Plan. Then, of course, we do note that the budget also talks about other areas of increasing revenue as part of helping, reduce that deficit. And one of them is increasing, the domestic revenue rates from 20% in 2021 to about 22.4% in by 2025 through various initiatives, including just improving the tax collection systems, which, if that is achieved, will be, of course, a good thing to ease the burden of revenue. Then the third aspect we looked at is the issue of macroeconomic stability. This, of course, has been a very long-term objective of government, and we did not we take note that in 2022, meaning this year, we've managed to maintain a single-digit rate of inflation and also to stabilize the exchange rate. And of course, the government is planning for inflation to maintain it between 6 to 8% level, and of course still continue to maintain stability in the exchange rate market. But we notice that there are other risks that we need to take to pay attention to, and those risks include the first one, the possibility of the war, that is Russia and Ukraine, escalating, which can lead to further increases, especially in the prices of fuel, which of course will have negative impact on our economy. Then the performance of the global economy will also matter to us quite a lot. I think there are fears that the global economy might slow down further in the next year. In fact, there are reports currently, like yesterday, released by the IMF, that are saying, we should brace for a very hard time in 2023. If that happens, we fear that the prices of commodities like copper might reduce further, and that might hit us badly. And then, of course, the other risk that we see is the risk of the rainfall season, and just agriculture output. If we have a very good agriculture output next year, that will help us quite a lot. I mean, that is very, very key to us, because you may realize that for this year, for example, part of the reason why we've actually managed to maintain even this stable macroeconomic condition is that we had very good capacity in terms of food security. In other countries that had problems, they were importing food. For us, we did not import food, and that cushioned us from the high prices of food internationally. So we need that to continue even next year, and that, of course, will depend on a good rainfall season. So then we go to what we think that the budget brings in as positives. There are two things that we identify, that we see in the budget that may help, I think, with the situation next year. One of them is a pronouncement on the fact that there's a fertilizer company that will be producing fertilizer locally in Chilanga district. That we think is a very important development, because it would help reduce on imports of expensive fertilizer and help just stabilize the local economy. And also, of course, we know that the part of the extended credit facility from the IMF is supposed to be used to actually help with our balance of payment. So in case that we've got shocks, with balance of payments, that can help us cushion, those shocks and help us stabilize the macroeconomic conditions. So we hope that by and large, the government will be able to maintain a stable macroeconomic position in 2023. So in terms of the challenges that we see in the medium term, those are intermediate challenges. One of the, I think, the areas that we're interested in is to see how the budget tries to take us in terms of economic growth. We realize that we've got that long-term vision 2030, which had projected that by this time we should be reaching about 10% growth. And when you see what has been projected by the 8th National Development Plan and the budget itself, we're talking about an average growth of 4% throughout this period, which is rather on the low side. So what we're saying is that perhaps the growth rates that we're working with may not be enough to really push the country to the position that we've always desired to be. And so we probably need a lot more effort to take in terms of ensuring that we increase growth. And what we're saying that some of those areas that probably we need to pay more attention now is the sectors such as agriculture. We had the chart in there in the report that states that it shows that the agriculture sector now is actually experiencing a recession, starting from Q4 of last year to date. The growth rate is in the negatives, and so probably that shows where the New Dawn government places the agriculture sector, and so it's something that we really need to begin to pay attention, because agriculture is key, I think, to a lot of things that we need to achieve, including industrialization. So we've actually noted that the government itself has placed quite a huge budget on what is called comprehensive agriculture support program. Although the details of these are not yet, I think, specified, we're yet to see exactly how this will unpack. But we're hoping that this will then begin to basically help grow the sector itself. And if it does, then we see that there will be quite a lot of hope, or it will be a game changer, for the sector. So we're hoping and praying that indeed what has been put aside, the 9 billion that has been set aside in the budget, will basically help push the agriculture sector from where it is to a totally different level. Then the other aspect that we wanted to speak to is the issue of jobs. Of course, the budget, I think this first section talked about why it is important to create jobs and the role of the private sector. I think it was a long section of it. And the budget itself also pointed out some of the areas where the jobs are going to be created, and some of those areas that we've noted are farm blocks, for example, where government is saying is using a $300 million loan to redevelop the farm blocks. On that issue, we're saying, okay, it's a good I think initiative, but are we able to do it differently from what we've done in the past? Because the issue of farm block is not new. It's something that we've had, and the results are available for us to see that, we've not had much success. So we're hoping that it's not the same business as usual approach. We're hoping that this could be done a bit differently so that, we harness the results from that initiative. And then the other area that we see is critical in terms of job creation is the issue of skills development under the CDF. Ourselves, we are calling that as one of the most novel initiatives under the New Dawn government, where the youths are able to get monies to go and do vocational and technical training. That is really one of the best things that we've seen in terms of development, because it means that young people are able to get skills which they can use to begin to create jobs for themselves. For that initiative, I think we want to recommend actually the government. However, we noticed that even if the budget speech itself is very strong in terms of talking about jobs, there's no strong resolve, to have a clear strategy, to create jobs themselves. It is more like speculative. So we would rather the government is deliberate in terms of articulating, the actual job development agenda, and we think that, some of the areas, things that we need to see regarding jobs, to see if the government is serious, is to be specific in terms of what are the industries or the sectors that will be used to create jobs. What are the actual interventions that will be used to stimulate job creations in those sectors? How many jobs are estimated to be created in those sectors? How are we going to count? How are we going to know that the jobs have been created? So we need all that information so that we're able to monitor and see that indeed jobs are being created. But the budget is not so, so clear on that issue. Then the last one is on the issue of what we're calling developmental inequalities. Of course, the issue of inequalities is something that we've been battling with for a long time. Our Gini coefficient is about, well, in 2015, it could have changed by now, but 2015, when the last survey was conducted, it was 0.6, which means that, only about 30% share all our wealth, and then about 70% have nothing, so we need to spread that wealth that we have across, and that's why we see that the CDF is one of the important instruments in helping redistribute that wealth, and the budget itself has at least a number of policy measures that are helping to redistribute that wealth, and one of them, of course, like I said, is the CDF, but the other one is the removal of subsidies, which the government said if those subsidies are removed, the money saved will be used to the areas that will benefit the poor more, which we think is okay and is important. But what we are saying is that if that happens, then what we want to see next year is that when you go to a school, you should see that the pupil-teacher ratio is reducing. You should see that the children, have got tables to learn from. You should see that, in hospitals we've got drugs which currently are not available, and that things like meal allowances which have been introduced are given in time. Then we will know that there's credibility in terms of the intentions of government. But if that does not hold, then we begin to doubt the intentions of even having savings from things like subsidies. So in terms of the increase in the CDF, we of course saying that it's a good thing that the amount has been increased. But I think one issue that we take note of is the fact that the minister said by 2014 they want to change from the uniform approach in terms of disbursement to using a criteria of population and poverty, which is the same, I think, criteria used for the local government equalization fund. What we're saying is that perhaps that's not a good idea to do. This is only 10 months of implementing this new model of CDF. We don't know the impact yet. We need to sit down, evaluate, and look at, how it's working best. So can we give it a bit more time, so that we do proper impact assessment. So we can begin to tamper with these policies. That's our I think position on that one. And then the other thing that we just wanted to speak to was the issue of empowerment policies. Of course, this is one of the, I think, areas where the government wants to send money to, so-called the deprived. But what we're saying is that what we've seen is, we're implementing the same empowerment programs that have been implemented in the past, which have got poor record of success. What we would have expected, if you talk about things like, the empowerment programs which are being talked about under the CDF, if you talk about empowerment programs under the Youth Development Fund, if you talk about empowerment programs under the CEC, I think in terms of design, in terms of operations, it's the same old story. So we're saying, okay, if we continue doing the same thing that we've been doing and has had bad results, do we expect of anything different in terms of impact? That no question. And we're hoping that this new government would come in with other totally different ideas related to delivery of empowerment program. But that we have not seen, and that to us is a negative. Then lastly, just in conclusion, we are saying that the budget sets a very fertile ground for steering the economy on a growth trajectory. The budget further goes a little further to ensure that the needs of the poor in the economy are well catered for. However, in order to warrant that the impact of the budget provisions is optimized, there is need to ensure that there is regular monitoring of the effectiveness of these policies. From time to time, impact assessment is also needed to track the extent to which the policies are helping change the lives of people across the country. The above should be done in collaboration with all stakeholders involved in the development spectrum. In this light, it is imperative that surveys such as the labor force survey, living conditions monitoring surveys, among others, are regularly conducted and results released on time. This would ensure that all stakeholders operate at the same wavelength in monitoring public policies. So what we're basically saying is that as we implement, we also need to begin to effectively monitor what we're implementing, and to help us monitor effectively, we need information, we need data, and so we need institutions like the Zamstats to be up to date, with their data. For example, we're talking about new budget. We try to look at, what we were able to achieve in terms of employment last year. If you go to Zamstats, you ask for the labor force survey, which was conducted last year. They'll tell you, the report is not ready, but this is 10 months in the year. So when do you expect that report to be ready? We need that report in the first quarter, so that we're able to use it to provide input in these such forums like now. So I think we need to be up to date in terms of data provision. With this, Chair, we submit. Thank you very much.
Great. Honourable members, it's now our time to ask questions. If at all there is any, I've seen a hand from Honourable Samakai and Honourable Washa. In that order, we can push our questions. You can start.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Newton Samakai, Member of Parliament for Mwinilunga constituency. I want to react to your assertion that perhaps it will be too early for us to go for a formula-based disbursement because we haven't assessed the impact on the increased CDF. I want to say this, that the impact of the increase in the CDF is actually not universal. You must understand that the constituencies are in varying sizes. And I would want to tell you that for now, the disbursement to cooperatives, for instance, is up to the maximum of 40,000 kwacha. In my constituency, Mwinilunga constituency, we're not achieving that. The best we could do is each cooperative would get 10,000 kwacha. But for some constituencies, they are giving as much as 40,000. The reason is simple, that the population is few, and therefore the cooperatives are also few, so they can get the maximum. For us, because the constituency is big, the population is big, so you can't give 40,000 kwacha because you will have maybe 12 to 14 wards not getting. Okay, so our solars would come through using the formula-based disbursement. The reason being that we'll be moving towards equality in the access of these resources. As it is now, there are a lot of inequalities across the constituencies as far as disbursement of these resources are. Because I'm aware that the formula-based, okay, is based on the non-availability of services in an area, because the cost of certain services is higher in other constituencies than others. You also take in the issue of population. So you'll be getting closer to equality in terms of distribution. So we support the issue of formula-based disbursement of resources other than this what is currently obtaining. So I tended to a little bit differ with that submission, Chairperson.
Honourable Washa.
Thank you so much. My names are Lloyd Dilwasha, Member of Parliament for Chifubu constituency in Ndola, Copper Belt.
My question is, government has taken positive strides to control the debt crisis, such as the enactment of the debt management bill of 2022, which accords now Parliament to approve the annual borrowing plan. They have also resorted to going to borrow loans that are concessional, and the infrastructure development will also as well be funded through a new model, the PPP, so as to control the debt crisis. But however, government is going ahead to borrow 1.4 billion kwacha from World Bank to finance the budget for 2023 on the external level, and at domestic level they are also borrowing 15.6 billion kwacha. My first question to you is,
Honorable Mungandu, just hold.
you
Honorable
as
Mungandu. Honorable Mungandu, just hold. Honorable Mungandu, can you mute yourself? Okay, you can go ahead.
Yes, my question to you is, what are some of the measures you would recommend for government to do, particularly in terms of revenue collections, so that they can enhance the capacity for revenue collection, so that we can reduce on the debt? And secondly, as government goes on the domestic market to borrow, they are going to create competition for local SMEs on the market to borrow from there because of high interest rates that are going to be created. What are some of the measures government has put in place to protect the SME as it goes on the money market to borrow to finance the budget? Thank you.
Thank you. Is that you can respond to those two, and then we'll wind down.
Can I come in, Chair? Can I come in? That's very important.
Okay, Honorable Mungandu, you can come in.
Thank you. Economic Association of Zambia, you have indicated you've welcomed the removal of subsidies, particularly on fuel. In your submission, you have indicated that we will redistribute income. But here is the situation I would want you to candidly comment. Is there a country in the world that does not subsidize key sectors of the economy, such as energy? If the answer is yes, give us examples of those countries. Because what we see now in Europe, because of energy crisis, they are subsidizing. Do you think with the removal of these subsidies, are we going to compete with the goods that are coming outside the Zambia in terms of quality, in terms of pricing? Because energy is an important factor in the production of goods and services. The final one is on the mines. Records have shown Economic Association of Zambia that last year we gave tax concessions. The reason was we want to attain 3 million in 10 years, metric tons per annum in 10 years. Instead of output increasing, it contracted. Do you think that is a prudent measure? Is there evidence of tax concessions and an increase in the output, particularly in the mining sector? I submit, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, let's take the last one. Honorable Munji.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Comrade Munji, Member of Parliament for Nalikwanda constituency. You have elaborated on the issue of indebtedness by the country. You have talked about the enactment of the debt management bill, the act restricting borrowing only to constitutional loans, and the usage of PPPs, which is another model. Now, you are saying, despite these measures, government is adding an additional 1.4 billion to the debt stock in 23. In as much as the debt is concessional, it is still contribute to the indebtedness of the country. The country needs to more investment in so many areas of the economy. In your own opinion, is there another model which the country could have used to bring in money for investment apart from PPP and the borrowing from IMF and the World Bank? Thank you.
Okay, you can respond to those questions, say maybe in 5 minutes so that we can close.
Okay, thank you, Chair and members of Parliament for those interventions. I think let me start on the issue of the CDF and the issue of inequality. Very interesting observation from the Honourable Member of Parliament. I must confess that I was one of the people who were involved in advocating for using a formula-based model to allocate resources. That was before that was implemented in the local government equalization fund. Actually, our campaign was that we use that for the CDF. That was like 2013, but government opted to use it in the local government equalization fund. But eventually I came to actually understand that the CDF was meant to address constituent-specific challenges. So each constituents at any level of development, because the levels of development are different, but at that level of development, each one of them has got unique challenges that has to be addressed. And if you look at it from that perspective, those unique challenges are not equal. So you cannot have equality in that perspective. You need to deal with those challenges as as a constituents, as you face them. So this model gives your constituency an opportunity to begin to address the issues that you need to address most. So if you want to take money somewhere else, I think for me I would advise don't. Begin to look at other avenues that you need that money for. If you cannot use it for empowerment, take it somewhere else where you need it. If it's water or, use it for that aspect rather than you wanting to give that money away. It's an opportunity to develop the constituents. Let's use that money. So as members of parliament, let's advocate for this uniform and let's use the local government equalization fund for the formula to distribute resources. So let's keep the formula for the local government equalization fund, but let's keep the CDF uniform and let's identify those key challenges in our constituencies that we need to address, regardless of the level of development. That's my advice to members of parliament. In terms of the issue of energy, I think it's not really a question of whether there are countries that subsidize energy or not. To me, I think it's just it's a policy that a government takes at that particular point. And right now, we know that the policy of the government is that they don't want to put these subsidies in fuel because they think it's a waste. They want to put those subsidies in the areas where they think that it will benefit people the most, and that is education, health sectors, and social protection sectors. So the issue of subsidies is there, but it's being used in a totally different area than energy. So it's not whether there's no country doing it or not. No, it's just the government policy. So the question is, does government policy make sense? Probably for now it makes sense, because we've seen that education sector has more funding now at 13%. Health sector has more funding at 11%. Students have got meal allowances, which is a good thing. But what we need to ensure is that come next year, funding indeed is taken to these areas where government has said it wants to redistribute. If that doesn't happen, then we should begin to question, this policy on subsidies. That's my contribution on that one. And then in terms of the last one on the model to borrow. I think the spirit in which we put our proposition in that paper is that we think that we should endeavor to begin to reduce borrowing in the intermediate term,
But also, I think the major thing that we need to do is to grow the economy. You're saying the economy is not growing big enough or at a faster rate. But it's only when we grow the economy that we'll be able to raise sufficient, revenue from taxes that we'll be able to fund our budgetary needs. But right now, we're saying 4% that we're targeting could be on the lower side. So I think to us, I think our mind should be around what do we do to indeed grow the economy so that we're able to collect as much taxes as possible from there. My colleague will answer the last questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much. Honorable Lloyd Lubashi, MP, asked the question zeroing on the government taking a $1.4 billion in terms of the IMF facility, as well as local borrowing of 15.6. He referred to 6 billion kwacha, and his question was, what revenue measures can government institute in terms of increasing its revenue purse, as well as what measures should government take in protecting local SMEs from outside investment coming in because we are borrowing, and the cost of borrowing within the Zambian jurisdiction will become high, which then will crowd out the local SMEs. In answering that, Chair, one of the issues which I've always laid before most of my colleagues who's maybe digressing from what my colleague has said is the budget in itself. I'll say something that is not politically correct. I think our budget in itself as a national budget is actually a very small budget. If you're looking at 10.6 billion kwacha, 10.6 billion US dollars, that is basically smaller than the budget of Harvard University in the United States. So if we're looking at the borrowing which the member of parliament did refer to, is if we're going to enhance revenue collection, there is a big sector in Zambia which unfortunately we were discussing outside this meeting, is the informal sector. The informal sector actually generates a lot of income. But if you look at our budget preparation, you look at our budget monitoring mechanisms, that informal sector is not actually put in terms of, is not included in the budget measurements that we actually look at. So in terms of enhancing revenue collection, perhaps with our revenue authorities, the Zambia Revenue Authority, we could tackle more in terms of the informal sector. You've got small-scale miners, you've got all these local traders who are cross-border traders, you've got all these other revenue incomes which are lying down within the economy, which actually can enhance even the budget performance in terms of the revenue position. This in itself can have a trickle-down effect in terms of increasing the GDP and also the debt revenue ratio of the country. Local SMEs protection, that is a very valid point. As we borrow, of course, the level of debt does increase the capacity of local SMEs to compete with foreign investment. This would then crowd out a lot of SMEs. They're not able to go to commercial banks to borrow at viable levels of borrowing. Perhaps what would be needed is maybe some relief mechanisms in terms of tax concessions, in terms of tax holidays for local SMEs, or maybe they come in a way where SMEs can be encouraged to form partnerships. We're talking about private-public partnerships. We can have our own local SMEs, which are identified within the government infrastructure to try and see how we can increase revenue in those particular areas. Say, for instance, if we took, for instance, in tourism, the Minister of Tourism was on air just the other day talking about creating an investment platform for investors to come into the country. But I think the question is, what happens to the local operators? If a foreign investor comes in, the local operators is stifled. We need to create mechanisms as perhaps government to see how you can protect the local enterprise, handhold them, give them incentives in terms of tax relief, perhaps inputs that they use in that particular space could be something that would be considered. So I hope I've satisfied your question. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, there was one question about issues of mining tax concessions. Did you touch that one? From what
I think that one we missed it out. Yes, mining tax concessions, Chair, is
is almost a egg and chicken kind of arrangement. Of course, the tax concessions which were introduced in the 2022 budget, what we see as perhaps a weakness on this budget is we could have actually seen a performance of how the 2022 budget performed, Chair, in comparison to what other incentives have been introduced this year. In terms of concessions themselves, the intention is good, but then what are we creating in the long term? There's always this issue of always being scared that you scare away investors. I was listening to a minister in Norway where they were talking about Norway is probably the most highly taxed in terms of investment in natural gas. Most of their foreign investment are taxed about 73%. So now with Zambia, of course, we want to attract a lot of investment, but I think careful consideration has to be given to the local investor, so that incentivizing a local investor, we've got a lot of experts in Zambia who can actually go and fill into that space. But we incentivizing a local investor who is investing in the mining space would also probably something that would help. So
okay, thank you. Honourable members, we're out of time with our colleagues. Obviously, there's still one burning issue. I think maybe that which you may want to look at critically as a takeaway each of the CDF, making it uniform. Usually, these one of our members, our argument basically are based on 3 issues. How do you make it uniform, considering one, the different poverty levels prevailing in our constituencies, the land mass, and also issues of population. So maybe as also maybe experts in those areas may want to go and dig further, and then maybe at a later stage we hear your submissions. So maybe just a bit of a homework for that. Okay, honourable members, this is where we come to the end of our interactions with the Economics Association of Zambia. As I alluded earlier on, we always value your input in our discourse for these matters. Kaptkov of the laws of Zambia in terms of the immunity also ends here. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, for having us.
My name is Bag Nyendwa, and I'm here at National Assembly where I have met the Speaker. What could be a word of encouragement to other females who would like to run for government or become the Speaker in future?
Thank you so much, and you are welcome to Parliament. This is your Parliament. So, on behalf of Madam Speaker, because the first Deputy Speaker in the last session was a woman like me, but on behalf of the Speaker herself, we were all very happy that for the first time in the history of Zambia, we had a female Speaker. That really made us very happy, because all along there were men. We want to see the difference between men and women, because women are also very important in the decision-making processes in Zambia. For example, just like the Vice President, she's a woman. So we are equally very happy to have a Speaker here. We know, being a woman, she's very accommodative, she's very lovely, And we are very sure that she will preside over in Parliament fairly, in a manner that the Zambians will be very happy. Because as you know, Parliament, when you are here at Parliament, we are working for the people of Zambia. So the people of Zambia will be very happy. By the way, Madam Speaker, myself, we preside over the proceedings in the House. So for those women, including the girls here, you've seen us, we are speakers, female speakers. So please, work very hard so that one day you'll be here. You take over from me, you take over from Madam Speaker. When that time comes, you become ministers, doctors, but what is required for you is to work very hard and be passionate about your country, Zambia. The future lies in your hands. Me, one day I'll be gone, Madam Speaker will be gone, and then you also be grown-ups like us. So you should work very hard that maybe from amongst yourselves there will be a speaker, even the boys, the girls, there will be a speaker, first deputy speaker, member of parliament, the minister, doctors, lawyers. So the ball is in your hands. Otherwise, you are supposed to be very passionate about your country, love your country. That is why we say, one Zambia, one nation. Thank you.
Thank you for having us here. We're very happy to be a part of this of you. And we're thanking you from Top Grade Academy, grade 7 pupils. We have learned so much and we just thank you.
Thank you. Come again. We
Zambia. Even saying the word is a multi-sensory experience. It somehow captures something of the essence of this special place in the warm heart of southern Africa. Take in the mighty Zambezi River, the majestic Victoria Falls that form Zambia's natural southern border, and the national parks overflowing with wildlife. Immerse yourself in the fast-growing towns and cities, teeming with history, light, and life. Then visit the vast lakes that seem to touch the stars and engage with a plethora of different ethnic groups, cultures, and languages. Together, they make up the intricately woven fabric of this remarkable country. To visit Zambia is to begin a love affair that will never be exhausted, and unlike any that you have ever experienced before. For all the superlatives that man has used in his attempts to describe Victoria Falls, none are able to do this incredible natural wonder justice. You have to see it for yourself. It is a truly awe-inspiring experience. Livingston, once Zambia's capital, and the Zambian side of the falls have become a mecca for discerning adventure tourists. Peer into the abyss from Devil's Pool at the edge of the falls. Career down the powerful rapids from Batoka Gorge in a whitewater raft. Bungee jump from the historic Victoria Falls Bridge. Or fly over the falls on a flight of angels. Whatever activity you choose, you'll be left with a renewed appreciation for the sheer might of nature. Kafue National Park is amongst the biggest in Africa and is home to more than 130 species of mammal and more than 400 bird species. Enjoy the wildlife from a different perspective on a boat cruise or a canoeing or walking safari. For sheer density of game, South Luangwa National Park is second to none. It certainly lives up to its nickname as the Valley of the Leopard. The
witness. The third one is here, the Zambia Council for Social Development. Good afternoon, good morning, our colleagues.
Good morning, Honorable.
Thank you. Thank you. You are appearing before the Expanded Planning and Budgeting Committee, where we are looking at the issues of revenue and expenditure for next year. This follows the pronouncement of the 2023 national budget. And also, as always, we rely on a number of partners, such as yourselves, to just hear your views over the issue of the budget. And we are grateful that you have made it to come. So what we'll do is we'll start with introductions. You introduce yourselves only, and then the honorable members will do their introductions as we continue with our interactions with you, so that we can catch up on time.
Thank you so much, Honorable Jatila. Good morning, honorable members of the committee. My name is Alia Mitava from Zambia Council for Social Development. Just to make a correction, today's submission is from ZCSD Community Budget Groups.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, you can continue with the introductions.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, Chairperson.
Good morning.
Good morning, honorable members of Parliament. I'm Sakara Yoram, the chairperson for CPG from Rufunsa District.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members. My name is Amali Omukana from Zambia Council for Social Development, Program Officer. Thank you.
Members of Parliament, I'm Nakaonga Cynthia from PICA, CBG member.
Good morning, honorable members of Parliament, and through the chair, I'm Zebis Mumba, Programs Manager for Zambia Council for Social Development. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Freddy Attila, the committee chairperson for the Planning and Budgeting Committee, also member of Parliament for Momba constituency in Monze. Honorable members, you remember the last time, I know like the director came. Also on our program, there was a slot which we allowed for our colleagues who are coming from the community budget groups, and these are the ones who are here today. So it's somewhat different from the Zambia Council for Social Development. We are basically interacting with members now from the community budget groups. Out of those 11, is it the 11 districts where they are operating from? And those are the ones now we are appearing before the committee today. Just a clarification. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll give you 15 minutes just to take us through your submission. Basically, not reading word by word, just give us those salient points. If you can do within 10 minutes, that would be great. Then we allow members to ask questions if at all there will be any. So you can start, but before that, Cap 12 of the laws of Zambia gives you immunity when you are appearing before a committee of parliament such as this one, meaning whatever you say whilst here can never be used against you in any court of law. So you have a full immunity, except unless if you are to just deliberately mislead the community, then also the same Cap 12 works against you. So take advantage of that, and let's start just now without taking much time. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, honorable members of parliament, chairperson. Just in introduction, I think Honorable Jatila has done justice in terms of who we are today, and we are legally mandated as the CBGs by the Act, which says, and I think I'll just quote the last part, which is in bold, because I think you have it before you, which says that one of the issues that the Budgeting Act wants to support is a participatory and decentralized national planning and budgeting process, which promotes the participation of state and non-state actors in the planning and budgeting process, provide evidence-based decision-making in national planning and budgeting, enhanced budget credibility and matters connected with or incidental to the foregoing. So the members that you have before who are coming from the districts are coming here also to just provide the evidence that is on the ground, as opposed to just having us Lusaka-based CSOs speak on their behalf. We have 21 community budget groups across the country in 13 constituencies. Last year, we had a CBG representative from Mumba constituency that appeared. This year, we are privileged, I think, through the invitation from this committee to have two. And I think at this juncture, honorable members of parliament, allow me to invite the submissions from the two districts, but then we also have a bit as well from Mumba. I think there's a case study from Mumba constituency that is going to be shared. So I have the pleasure to invite Mr. Sakala to speak to the presentation.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Like ED has put it, Chairperson, honorable members of parliament, we are glad to be part of this landmark stride on ensuring that one of the goals of the National Assembly to make itself more accessible to all Zambians is being realized through this invitation. Chairperson, as representatives from the district, we have observed that previously only CSOs and individuals were invited, those that are Lusaka based, to say one or two issues on relating to the national budget. We are therefore thanking this committee through the clerk of the National Assembly in particular to invite us to make our submission this year. As you may be aware that poverty and needs are indeed high in the rural communities, and therefore the need to have people in rural areas voice our concern is important and timely. Chairperson, honorable members of parliament, 80% of our people in Zambia are farmers, and they are largely living in rural areas, and as such, having our input on the budget is key. We therefore hope that next year there will be more voices in the national budget from rural areas. Would also want to thank the organization with the support from the European Union that have made it possible that they trained us for about 5 days in trying to understand what this process means. It is our prayer to this committee that through you may receive positively our recommendations, which we now present below.
Thank you very much. We are representing under education. Chairperson and honorable members of the committee, our people in our districts are happy with the government direction to reduce poverty and inequality by providing free education up to grade 12. Communities also welcome the plan to employ 4,500 teachers in 2023 because most classrooms in rural areas have one teacher facing many pupils. For instance, in 2016, when I was at Chikwanda Primary School, we were 55 in class. With the free education policy now, there are 100 pupils in class. This implies that the same teacher who handled the 55 is now handling the 100 pupils. Then our concerns: quality of education. The CBG has noted an increase in enrollment rates. We are concerned with the quality of education that these pupils will be attaining due to the increase. This is against an already high teacher-pupil ratio, which is against the educational guidelines that provides that for each teacher at primary level, there are supposed to be between 40 and 45 pupils. At secondary level, it provides for not more than 40 pupils. In a similar narrative, you find schools in urban with lower pupil-teacher ratio, while in the rural schools have higher pupil-teacher ratio. Even with this background, at the national examination time, both urban and rural private and public school pupils are expected to compete in the same exam. We think that this is not an equal exam and perpetuates the existing inequality in Zambia. And second concern, long distance between schools. Schools are far apart, making the learners cover long distances or subjected to weekly boarding in often bad conditions. For example, pupils in many schools of Rufunsa are still covering an average distance of 10 kilometers to access primary and secondary education, from village to Chitemalesa Secondary School, or from Chomba to Shikaweta Secondary School. Weekly boarding, on the other hand, places the child in vulnerable situations such as sexual abuse, unwanted pregnancies, and drug abuse. The third concern, inadequate infrastructure. There is an existing challenge of infrastructure, and in the most rural parts, for example, a school running from early childhood education to grade 12 with 6 classrooms and no specialized rooms. Thank you, members of parliament. I rest my case here and invite my colleague.
Like he has alluded to, the CPG member from Mpika, looking at infrastructure and other concerns that she has put across, we therefore put across these 3 recommendations. The first one, we recommend that out of the 120 new secondary schools to be constructed across the country, as we can note on the speech budget that our Honorable Minister represented, at least 2 new schools be sited in both Rufunsa and Mpika, as well as other rural constituencies which have this big challenge. I think the Minister was speaking to this point very well at a point where he was giving examples of those secondary schools that were just maybe, for example, a school is running 1 to 9, and then the government maybe calls that school to be a secondary school. The same infrastructure that we are hosting those 1 to 9 pupils is now hosting up to grade 12. Doing this would decongest classrooms and also assimilate the 30,496 teachers that were employed in this year, including the 4,500 that will be employed. This will ultimately improve the quality of education. The other recommendation, just to address those concerns we have put across, construction of boarding school facility. The planned schools to be constructed should provide for boarding facility, especially in the rural areas of Zambia where learners have to travel long distances. Certainly if that is done, the traveling time may be put aside for studying. There are schools like in Chomba, just within Lusaka province, and even in Mpika, where you find that boarding facilities that are there are only weekly, like he has also put across. The third recommendation, the free education grants. We are requesting through this committee chairperson that the Ministry of Finance and National Planning should ensure timely disbursement of free education grants. This is to meet the quarterly budgeting that we understand schools were advised to be making. Since the issue of poor water and maybe sanitation and other challenges straight maybe directly face the female maybe or the girl child in school, I'll call upon Cynthia again just to tell us a bit on the issue of poor water and sanitation facility. Cynthia.
Thank you.
Your mic.
Thank you, honorable members of the parliament. On poor water and sanitation facilities, most schools in our areas do not have proper water and sanitation facilities. This is especially a challenge for the girl child. Related to this issue is the biological and menstrual needs for the girl child that most families are unable to meet, resulting in some girl children missing school every month during their menstrual cycle. For instance, Chikonda Primary School in Pika, with a population of about 1,000 pupils, using 8-pit latrines and 1 hand pump. Chitemalesa Combined School in Rufunza, running from early childhood education to grade 12, with 1,300 pupils, using 10-pit latrines and 1 hand pump. Our recommendation for this one, we recommend that each school should have proper water and sanitation facilities according to the current standards in providing quality education. 1 toilet to be used by 20 girls and 1 toilet to be used by 25 boys. We also recommend that a budget line for sanitary towels be included for every girl child in need. Honorable members of Expanded Planning and Budgeting Committee, in making these 2 recommendations, we are in agreement with the Minister's statements that all schools must have running water. CDF bursary. We welcome the community level bursary introduced under CDF. As I'm speaking, our relatives and friends are already receiving and enjoying the bursary support. For instance, my own sister, Memory Nakaonga, is receiving the same, and she's at Chinsali Girls. As a community, we still think that this support is restrictive, and this committee should make a positive consideration to broaden this progressive provision to include tertiary support. The first recommendation on the CDF bursary should support at least 5 students for tertiary education from each constituency. This focus on skills training, while progressive, will still require time to build, and thus the support toward tertiary still remains important. The committee should seriously consider this submission because the progression of 5 students to college and university will bridge the inequality gap between urban and rural children. Chairperson, the above submission is also made in light of the difficulties of rural children to access the central bursary system. For instance, in Mpika, there are several stories of children with 7 to 13 points who for a consecutive 3 years have been failing to acquire a bursary sponsorship. Meanwhile, we have CDF bursary allocation for Momba constituency not being exhausted in the first quarter. The constituency was allocated 6,433,695.67 kwacha, out of which 1,222,402.18 kwacha was allocated for bursaries. The constituency only used 524,750 kwacha, leaving a balance of 697,652.18 kwacha unutilized. These amounts, honorable members of parliament, can pay the annual college school fees for about 80 students at a government college. When it comes to our highest training institution, University of Zambia, UNZA, this amount can support 20 students. Then the other, making schools disability friendly. Zambia Disability Act number 6 of 2012 states that every public building must have a ramp to cater for persons with disability. However, most schools in Zambia fail to meet the provision of this act. Similarly, the general environment is not disability sensitive because facilities such as doorways, toilets, and other facilities don't accommodate the needs of people with disability. Our first recommendation, honorable members of parliament, is that all schools and training centers should build ramps and put in place facilities that take the needs of people with disabilities into consideration. The second recommendation is that government must progressively provide wheelchairs and brails for pupils with these needs. Thank you. I invite my colleague, Mr. Sakala.
Thank you very much. Chairperson, on agriculture, as highlighted by the Honorable Minister in the speech, the CPGs agree that the performance of the 2021-22 agricultural season was low due to late rains and floods. A similar reality was experienced in both Mpik and Rufunsa, and then this experience we will need to give us some research to do. There are certain issues that we can address to do with these issues, as we know that these are issues that will be with us. Number one, looking at the issues of climate change, rainwater harvesting, illicit cutting down of trees, and poor soil management practices. The preceding scenario has contributed to the low productivity levels as alluded to by the Honorable Minister of Finance in his budget speech. Honorable members of the Extended Planning and Budgeting Committee, we welcome the continuation of FISIP as reformed to Comprehensive Agriculture Support Program, which the Honorable Minister of Finance said will cover the following: the extension service support, irrigation development, access to finance, support to value chain and storage and logistics. What are our recommendations, therefore? We have the following. We recommend that this House moves to Parliament to support a progressive rollout of the e-voucher system as government addresses the teething challenges experienced in the past. We note that the e-voucher allows farmers to grow different resistant crops such as cassava, drought-resistant crops such as cassava, sorghum, and cashew trees, to mention a few. Meanwhile, we also recommend that extension officers must sensitize farmers on the e-voucher system and physical distribution of inputs, which we feel can go hand in hand, highlighting the benefits and the challenges. This will allow beneficiaries to make informed choices on what system is best. The issue of sensitization, Chairperson and the committee, is crucial to address the mixed reactions where other farmers prefer e-voucher system while others prefer the physical distribution of inputs. We have the following recommendations, therefore. The first one, we look at the issue of list of beneficiaries. The list of beneficiaries should be updated and cleaned up of double recipients and cleaned out of those that have since died. Then the second recommendation, which we've said, making the agriculture a standalone budget. We recommend that just like health, housing, and community amenities and environmental protection, agriculture should be a standalone function in the national budget with a clear share of budget percentage. Our recommendation on number 4 is timely disbursement. The Ministry of Finance and National Planning should improve on disbursement and ensure timely disbursement. The fifth recommendation is continuous evaluation of the electronic FISIP to ensure that handles are addressed. The hurdles are addressed. The sixth one, increase budget allocation to ensure adherence of the Maputo Declaration as committed in the international treaties. The last part of our submission, we're looking at the CDF chairperson. We feel one of the most pronounced realities in Zambia is that development is not benefiting Zambians in an equitable manner. The CPGs notes that some portions of Zambia used to see very little or no development at all. The UPND government has advanced a uniform national development and equitable distribution of our national resource by ensuring resources are deployed to all corners of this country through the significantly increased Constituency Development Fund. We welcome the increase of CDF from 25.7 million to 28.3 million in the 2023 national budget. It is our hope, therefore, that in line with the aspiration of the National Planning and Budgeting Act number 1 of 2020, the increased CDF will, among other issues, ensure the development reaches all corners of the country. Communities should continue to influence what projects gets implemented according to their real needs on the ground. By doing so, Chairperson, local communities will benefit from government funds through various forms of empowerment, like we noticed in the first year of the UPND government in power. Further, local funds will be spent at the local level and projects will be delivered at reduced price when local materials are used. This can be attested to the many times that the head of state has emphasized on this point. Our recommendation, therefore, are as follows. The first one, we feel the capacity building of key stakeholders is very important. The council and constituency officers must understand the guidelines and the processes of administering CDF, especially that the funding has been increased. If we are going to use the same scope when CDF was very low than it is now, it may be difficult for these officers to explain well the guidelines. Then our second recommendation, which is the last one, is that understanding of guidelines by communities. The CDF committees should carry out continuous sensitization of the guidelines that are regulating the fund to enable citizens in constituencies know how the fund can be be obtained. This can be done through the committees working closely with both state and non-state actors. In conclusion, we wish to thank the National Assembly for inviting us to be witness before this honorable committee. Chairperson, honorable members of parliament, and indeed our partners, this interaction would not have been possible without the technical support we received from the council, and I wish on my own behalf, and on behalf of my colleagues to say thank you. This is a good project, and we hope that you can extend it to more constituencies. Before this project, I'd never participated in the national budget process and would not have known where to begin from, but here we are, interacting with the MPs who we only see when they visit our constituencies. It is refreshing today to meet them in their offices where we send them to represent us. Finally, but not the least, I wish to thank my colleagues in the CPGs for allowing the two of us, Mpika and Rufunsa, to represent them before Parliament. I'm happy to say that we have passed on their messages, especially affecting the rural communities, and we now await to see the results of our engagement with this committee. Thank you very much.
Great.
I've raised my hand, Chair.
Honorable Mungandu, order. Order, Honorable members, any questions? I see a hand from Honorable Mutinta, Honorable Bosha, Honorable Simunji, and I've been informed via this platform that Honorable Mungandu has also raised his hand. So we will take those 4 questions and then we will close in that order. Honorable Mutinta.
Thank you so much, ZCSD, and we give you gratitude, especially for ensuring that even the people from other districts, they are also represented. Apart from always having the people from Lusaka, I think it's a good gesture and it has to be promoted. In your CDF, you are saying this CDF can be enhanced if the CDF committee can work very close with both state and non-state actors. When you look at the CDF provisions, in my constituency testers, I've got two people representing the non-state actors, the church and the civil society organizations. They are sitting in that committee, they are part of decision making. But I'm also of the belief that there's no mechanism where the two who sit in that committee build the conversation to the other members of the CBOs in the district. Don't you think the gap sits within yourselves? Because government has done its part by creating a provision for them to sit. But if you went to the other CBOs in the district, they are not aware of what's happening in CDF. So where do you think the problem is? So government has done its part. So help me to understand what more should be done to build inclusiveness, because I feel there is enough inclusiveness here. Thank you.
Okay, Honorable Lubosha.
Thank you, Chair. Lloyd Luwasha, Member of Parliament, Chifubu Constituency, Copper Belt. Chair, mine may not just be a question per se, but just a comment. As a Member of Parliament and a representative of the people, I think the submission our colleagues have done is very, very valid, and I wish to stand with the witness on the submission of including 5, and if possible with me, I would recommend 10 students to be accessing tertiary, because this has been a cry of most of my people in the constituency, because there is no way out. The whole chunk of money can just go to the skills. We also need to supplement, because there are some people within the constituency that have been unable to access the support from central bursaries. At least if we can also devolve a bit to go to CDF and start supporting maybe 5 to 10, I think that would be commendable, because most of our people in the constituencies will start now accessing higher education through government support. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Simunji.
Thank you, Chair. Witness, I'm getting worried with the way you have put your write-up on education. When you look at our education system now, at the time the UPND government took over power, the teacher PPO ratio was very high, very low. Well, I'll say it was very high actually. Now, we have recruited a lot of teachers, and the possibility that we are recruiting more next year. From there, the CDF, using CDF, we have seen a construction of more infrastructure, both accommodation and classrooms for teachers. Now, the way you have put it here, that the number of children are so many in the classrooms, I thought you were going to recommend that actually we have seen change because of the recruitment of teachers and the free education. The two, when you look at them, they actually they are in tandem with the UPND government.
Okay. Honorable Ngandu.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I would like the witness to comment. I heard the witness stating that now they are seeing equal distribution of development as opposed in the past when the CDF was not distributed equally. I wanted just also, just like Honorable Luwoji, to put the record straight that in the past, CDF was never distributed unequally. Each constituency receives the same amount of money, just like the way we are doing it now. If development was distributed unequally, why are you bringing a pupil from Rufunsa, a pupil from Pika with more problems? Because those are areas that were expected not to have more problems, to have no problem. Why is it so? Because there's evidence, and why we are all members equal amount of CDF research is playing in the narrative of us politicians because we mislead the public at times. Then I would like these people of that organization to comment on the removal of subsidies because fuel is going up and it will continue going up. Connection fees.
Honorable Mwandu, our witness was given specific instructions in terms of what we wanted, looking at what they are looking at. So you don't extend to those that are not covered. Okay, Zambia Council for Social Development. You have in fact about 3 questions because Honorable Basha, it was just a comment, it was not really a question. So you need to respond to a question from Honorable Mutinta, then Honorable Simunja, and also the issue from Honorable Mungando. Maybe under 5 minutes. If you can do that, that's fine. Another witness has been waiting for long.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Honorable Members of Parliament. To the last question from Honorable Mungando, we stated that development has not been equal. We are referring to national development. And if you look at CDF, previously it was 1.6. But now with the significant increment, we're thinking that CDF will be used as an inequality reducing tool. So we did not compare the amount that was being disbursed previously to now. For us, we're looking that since communities will be able to make decisions now on their own, I think it will be more equitable. A good example is a bursary system which a child from a rural area cannot easily access from Zambia. But through CDF, if this committee and Parliament considers this positively, we are talking about 150 constituencies sending 5 to 10 children to tertiary education. I think that should be about 750 constituency being members being supported. In terms of the concern from Honorable Mtinta on there being a gap, we do agree that there's a gap. And if you look at this project that we have brought, this is an example of how we are trying to fill that gap. We are trying to organize communities. So some of the things that the CBG members do, they are a committee of about 15 to 20 people. So their task is also to ensure that they pass on the message out there. So we've seen the progressive stance that government has taken. And today I think we came through the 2 colleagues, the way they've articulated the issues. I mean, it's a clear indication that really there's no barrier. Even a person from a rural area is able to present before Parliament and will be speaking to issues that they are living. And we're hoping that for next year, probably they'll join us via Zoom because they're also able to use that facility. One of the reasons we were told by National Assembly that it's difficult to invite non-state actors from Lusaka was the cost. But now with a Zoom facility, with a Teams facility, it's possible to organize. So that's what we're doing to address that issue, Honorable. Sadly, we're only in 13 constituencies. We're hoping we can expand to more constituencies this year and next year. Then the concern from Honorable Simunji had to do with our submission on education. Honorable Simunji, the recruitment only happened, I think, about a month or 2 ago, so we're yet to see major impact of it. Some teachers have been deployed already, but I think from the beginning of this year, the situation was as Cynthia suggested. We had increased enrollment against fewer teachers. We're hoping that maybe from now to next year, probably the ratio will reduce. But it's something that we have noted the progressive stance taken. And this is why we congratulated also and encouraged the recruitment of the 4,300 teachers. But thank you so much for that submission. And then you have something to add? And perhaps, Cynthia, before our immunity is taken away.
Yeah, under 1 minute.
Thank you very much. The comment was what Honorable was saying. Immediately free education was announced, there was a massive people rushing to go to schools. But infrastructure could not rush with the people coming into schools because, for example, Rufunsa constituents or Mpika, she will mention I think also, you find that the number of schools that could have been constructed in the first big CDF that was received this year could not be compared to the number of pupils that are there. In our submission, we have given an example of a school in Rufunsa district called Shitemalesa, where it was declared to be a secondary school in 2018. The infrastructure that that school has been using for grade 1 to 9 is the same infrastructure and the same facilities for sanitation and the same one hand pump borehole. So surely we are seeing light at the end of the tunnel, but the challenges are real. And on top of that, you find that there are no proper boarding facilities. There's again a school called Shikaweta in Rufunsa, where you find that there's a boarding school, but if you look at the conditions of those boarding schools, there are a lot of gaps, which I think with the 120 schools that are proposed in the budget, we feel rural areas could be given a bigger chunk. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable members and our colleagues from the Zambia Council for Social Development community budget groups, this is for me, I think, a big milestone. As indicated in our budget interactions, where now we can interact with people from far-flung areas, taking the budget closer to where the majority are in the rural areas. So our colleagues, thank you for coming through. As you indicated, Kapkov, in terms of the immunity, we end here. We wish you safe travels as you go back to Mpika, Rufunsa, and the other areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.